Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Hello and welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to those of you guys who are here for our members only live stream. Initially, I had this planned for a little bit earlier, but then I didn't know how long we were going to be going with members live. We had a whole lot of fun playing Never Have I Ever, and it went a little bit long, so I just pushed this a little back so that we could have time to finish our last chaos round, as it were. So shout out to Official, shout out to Twiz, shout out to Annie, aka Happy Annie. Love to see y'all here. I can't type. Woo! Let's type properly. Yay! And let's see who else we got here. Happy to see all of you guys. Yeah, so by the way, for anyone who missed the news with Karen Reed, apparently, there was that juror who was an alternate and did not deliberate, but there was word that there was an attorney in the mix there. And anyway, so this juror who was not a deliberating juror, that was apparently an attorney, is now being added to her defense team. I mean, I guess they're going to make a motion for it. Who knows what Judge Bev will do, which is wild because their jury selection starts in less than a week and the whole thing is crazy. So there's that. Also, tomorrow, Donna Adelson has a hearing, and it's going to be interesting because there's, some different motions on the table, but the big thing is the order disqualifying the investigator. So what I would expect to happen tomorrow is more than likely they're going to have to face reality as to what's going to happen with the trial. Really interesting for that too. Other channels seem to be on a break. I'm not sure which channels you're talking about, but glad you have a little bit of a break. There's, she's actually really? I mean, I haven't had a chance to read anything about that. I just literally know what I told you guys. I haven't had a chance to look into that at all. That's crazy though. I'm surprised she was able to serve on the jury. Like that seems, I don't know, interesting. That is very interesting. But yeah, because also we have all these documents for Idaho, right? So there's all those things happening, so much happening right now in these different cases. And yes, so let me just make sure my iPad is charging after we had our whole game night there. Okay, so she wasn't when she was a juror. Okay, gotcha. Well, that's better. That's definitely different then. Happy Annie's clarifying here. Yeah, no, I'm just surprised that people are on a break because there's so much happening. I don't know how you possibly do that and not, how do you get caught up after, you know what I mean? So yeah, so anyway, as we're seeing here, y'all, like tons of new documents, So what I was initially planning on doing tonight was the death penalty motions, because that was the only thing we had left from the previous onslaught, but then all these other docs dropped. So, with them, there's additional responses regarding the death penalty. So I figured it's fine. We'll just do all the death penalty ones all together. But there's some really interesting things I wanted to talk about. So, first things first. First things first. All right. We're going to talk about the car stuff. So let me pull. Hi, Kimmy. Welcome. So one thing I wanted to mention. So this bothered me before. So this is from the previous onslaught. This is from the state's response regarding the make and model of the suspect vehicle, right? So one thing that really bothered me was that nowhere in here does it, and I double checked again today, does it ever indicate if they made the adjustments for the cameras that are off, the timestamps that are off, right? So like you've got, so you've got all these timestamps, right? And it doesn't ever talk about whether they made the adjustments. And the adjustments are found on page, I think it's 28, if memory serves. I believe so. Yes. So here's where it lists all the cameras. And so many of them are off and they vary. Sometimes they're not that off, but like, for example, here, right? This camera is approximately 1 minute and 43 seconds behind local time. So, you know, I noticed this last time, right? When I covered the document, but what I was like thinking is like, surely then somewhere they're going to talk about when they put this into the maps and shit, right? Like, did they go ahead and correct it, right? They never even say. They never say that they do, and they never say that they don't, which is insane to me. So when you're looking at again, these ones, right? We don't know if they made those adjustments. Yeah, we covered those documents yesterday. It was in Judge Bev's order denying the motion to dismiss. That's where we got some of that information about the American Legion and whatnot. But one thing that's interesting is this. So zooming in. Well, there's more than one thing that's interesting. But in case, so for anyone who saw this, right? So if you look at this, we've got 1125 Ridge Road, right? At 3:29 a.m. But then you also have 1320 Linda Lane at 3:29 a.m. And so I thought to myself, well, are either of those cameras ones that are off? Because potentially, if, and we don't know, but if they put the time here, as in the time that the camera said, but then we know that the camera, oh my God, the camera timestamp is off, right? You know, that would change things. So then what I went and I looked at, so again, 3:29, 3:29, right? So then I looked at, because while that does look like, what the fuck is that about, right? But, okay, so then when I looked at, going back to page 28, so between those two cameras, 1125 Ridge Road is accurate, but then the 1320 Linda Lane, the camera time is approximately 5 seconds behind local time. So 5 seconds off. So they're not that much, but 5 seconds. But then when you look at what's interesting, so when you look at, so when I saw 3:29, 3:29, I thought, well, it could be because it's like we don't have the seconds, right? Like, or well, yeah. So basically, but you have it here. So, okay, so the 1125 Ridge Road, but remember this camera is accurate. So 3:29:02, right? And 3:29:04. And then the 1120 Linda Lane one is right here. And so that's 3:29:48. So it's within the same minute. And so then I did Google Maps to see how long would it take to drive it. And it's like around a minute or less than a minute. But if you account for the fact that potentially this is the timestamp from the camera and that is 5 seconds off, then that would really put the vehicle there at 3:29:53. So when you think about 3:29:02 to 3:29:53, that's just under a minute. So that makes sense of that. So like if anyone was like really concerned about that, I think this makes it clear, right? That anyway, hopefully what I'm saying makes sense. So that was one thing I wanted to look at. There's still tons in here to try to figure out how to that I need to implement on the maps that I've made already, my previous maps. But it's, it's, I don't even know when I will do that. So I had so many docs, right? It's so many docs. So next up, right. So now we're going in order here. Now we're going to look at the reply. So in other words, hold on, let me go back. So this whole thing came out, right? This huge document here, right? And then that was the state's filing. So now we have the defense response to that. Now what's interesting is, the state's filing there is 51 pages. Now it does include the affidavit. It includes lots of pages of, the reports and whatnot. But in terms of the actual motion, like where you have, let me just go back to it. We have actually like their filing, if you will, like their pleading here. So you've got, like 8 pages, right? So now you have the defense response and it's 3 pages. Because I think it's interesting. Remember, we're getting into a lot of strategy here, right? With what they want to disclose to the public and when and how. By they, I mean both parties, right? And this is like the 4D chess, right? So it's interesting how some of these state filings that were like pretty lengthy, right? I find it interesting when there's these defense responses that are really brief, which we're going to see. I think that's on purpose. So anyway, so we have here the defense reply to state's response to defendant's motion Limine number 12 about the make and model of the suspect of vehicle. So as we know, evidence first has to be admissible, right? Relevant evidence is admissible. So the relevant evidence is that which has any tendency to make a fact more or less probable. Then they left out the word be. I'm going to lose it. Oh, God. Then it would be without the evidence. And the fact is of consequence in determining the action. Idaho Rules of Evidence 401. The court may exclude relevant evidence if its probative value is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice, confusion. We know all that. Okay. So here, Mr. Kohberger's motion sought to prevent the state from saying that the vehicle depicted on 1112 King Road camera was a Hyundai Elantra and that the vehicle was the same vehicle identified as the Elantra on 1125 Ridge Road. This is in the province of the jury. The state points out that there is no continuous video stream to observe a path of travel. As the state points out, they cannot show a vehicle at 1112 King continuously moving to the location of 1125 Ridge Road. That's an incomplete sentence. Because they are 2 separate videos separated by distance, an opportunity for other places to drive or park, an opportunity for other vehicles to appear on camera, it is a question for the jury. The state's argument would make sense if Mr. Kohberger sought exclusion of the 1112 video. He seeks exclusion of speculative statements. So what they're saying here is they're making a distinction. He's not trying to say leave out the video. He's not trying to exclude video. He's trying to say exclude the speculative statements that say it's the same car and let them decide if it's the same car. I think that's bold. This is a bold statement, right? That's why I wanted to mention. So I said 3 pages, but it's really just, I mean, when you look at the first page, there's nothing there, right? It's just the caption and then that. And then the 3rd page is the certificate. So you have 1 page, right? Okay. This is very interesting, right? So this is what they're saying is it's a big deal, right? They're not trying to keep the video out. They want the jury to see the video, but they want the jury to be the ones to make the decision if it's the same car or not. Why? Because they are obviously very confident that just like many people who look at these and are like, how can you tell? Or they're definitely not the same car, or they're not an Elantra, or one of them is and one of them isn't, right? I mean, the way that everybody else has been looking at this and being like, I mean, how can you tell what kind of car it is? Da, da, da. That's what the jury's going to do, right? So they're like, let the jury, and why? Because they clearly feel pretty confident that the jury's not going to be like, yeah, it's definitely an Elantra, it's definitely the same car, whatever the case may be. And so that's why they don't, because otherwise they would be trying to fight the video, right? They're not trying to keep the video out. So again, the state's argument would make sense if Mr. Kohberger sought exclusion of the video. He seeks exclusion of the speculative statements that are in the province of the jury. It's a big distinction. Mr. Kohberger is not seeking to exclude S.A. Imel's testimony on these grounds. His testimony about what make and model of the vehicle at 1112 King Road will be subject to cross-examination trial. That's like them's fighting words. That's like, don't worry, we'll cross him on that at trial. About, I don't know. Do you guys see what I mean? This is very gutsy. I love it. I love to see it. Shout out to Tonka. Glad you're here as well, my friend. So next up, we're going to go to the bushy eyebrows. And one thing that I talked about last time when I covered this document the first time that I don't know, I've not heard anybody really talk about, not that it matters. I'm just curious what you guys think. Because everybody talks, like, so far from what I've seen, it's like, it's like, oh, is it creepy? Da, 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 da. Somehow the thing that stuck out to me, right, when I covered this initially was what stuck out to me was the difference in his eyebrows in this versus the driver's license. And I thought it was noteworthy that the state wants to use this picture and not the driver's license picture to show the bushy eyebrows. And that if you look at the eyebrows and the hair in this picture versus the other picture, which we can, what I did last time was I actually made it so that it was horizontal and you could see it better. But basically the point being that, if his hair and eyebrows are darker and and if they're wet, right? If they're wet, it makes the eyebrows look more prominent and darker, right? And the point that I thought was interesting is like, oh, so they're not trying to let the jury decide if this picture has bushy eyebrows, because honestly, they don't look bushy. I mean, I wouldn't call them bushy, period. But my point is there's a big difference in the eyebrows in the license picture. I mean, you can even tell from just like this, right? Even though it's vertical, right? Eyebrows and the hair, right? And this. And it's true for anybody, right? If you just get out of the shower and your hair is wet and your eyebrows are wet, everything, even your hair, right? All of it's going to look darker and it's going to be more visible. So that was one thing. But the other thing that stood out to me was he's got headphones on, right? Like he's got, like, has anybody else, like, what are we making of that? Like, I mean, what do you guys think? It looks like, I will say, those look like the type that you have for running, because I have some of, the headphones like that they make for running are different than the normal, like, earbuds or what have you, right? And so, but it's interesting that they're on in the picture, and it makes me wonder if that's for a reason. Like, is it like those were a gift from somebody? I mean, like, why would you have them on to take a picture, right? So for me, the thing that I'm curious about, and I'm not saying it means anything at all, I'm just curious about it. Like, what's he listening to? You know what I mean? Because it's like that's a decision, right? That's a decision to put those on to take the picture. So, also it's a dress shirt, So, so yeah. Okay. So now, speaking of bushy eyebrows, now we have, again, the defense response. So reply to state's response to the defendant's motion to eliminate bushy eyebrows. And that's what I was wondering. That's literally what I was wondering as well, Tonka, something like that, right? The video call, right? That's what it seems like to me. That the headphones are important, right? Because it's like, if you're just taking a selfie and that's it, that's one thing. But the headphones on is like, you're either listening to music or you're on a phone call. So it changes the context of it, right? But nobody's mentioned the headphones that I've seen. Okay. So argument. So mistaken. Now, by the way, for anyone who missed it, right? For anyone who missed it, in the state's filing, they made a big deal about the fact that they never showed Dylan a picture, right? That she was asked if she'd seen the defendant once he was arrested, if she just happened to see it. And they just asked if she'd seen it. And then if she recognized him, and she was like, I don't fucking know anything. And their entire argument was like, we didn't show her a lineup. We didn't show her any pictures. And if you guys remember when I covered it initially, I was like, hang on, why do I feel like I remember somebody, probably Ashley Jennings? Like, I had this record, like, I feel like they said they showed her. Anyway, so then we followed up on that on the last BK live stream, and I pulled up the clip where literally in the hearing on the 23rd, January 23rd, Ashley Jennings says, and she was shown a picture, and I played it a couple times just to hammer the point home, that Ashley Jennings says they showed her a picture. So my thought process was, and I haven't even read this yet, my thought process was, will the defense catch that? Probably, but I would let the state fucking have it, right? Like, if their entire thing is we didn't show her a picture, it's like, but you did show her a picture, or you said you did. Anyway, so it'll be interesting to see if they bring that up. So, okay. Mistaken identifications have been one of the leading causes of wrongful convictions in the United States for decades and still are. Footnote 1. Okay, they're just citing all this stuff. Great. When a witness swears under oath to the identification of the person on trial, the impact cannot be understated. Now, what I will say just right off the bat is it's pretty clear, not even pretty clear. It's very clear that DM is not going to do that. She's like, does not know. And that can't be clearer, right? In this case, if DM is allowed to say that she saw, okay, they're just going with the bushy eyebrows. In this case, if DM is allowed to say that she saw bushy eyebrows, it will not be different than her pointing to Mr. Kohberger. I disagree with that. I completely disagree with that. 100% is different. For her to say, I saw bushy eyebrows, that is completely different than the whole pointing to, like, again, I always reference the Zachary Hughes trial because we saw it there with that old lady with the shaky finger. That's him over there. Completely different. That is a positive identification that you saw that person and a person is in the courtroom. That is completely different than saying, I saw bushy eyebrows. Because that doesn't mean fucking anything, right? So I disagree with this. It is, but let's see if they can convince me otherwise. To make matters even more prejudicial, the state wants to admit into evidence a picture of Mr. Kohberger as if DM identified him in the photo. This is how wrongful convictions occur. Well, again, I don't agree with this. They want to admit a picture of him. This part, though, as if DM, no, this is a bridge too far. Because literally she's the opposite, right? I mean, I think it works out for the defense. Like I pointed this out before, right? Where DM is literally asked point blank, like for when they state saying we didn't show her a picture, she saw one on her own, and then they're like, is that the person you saw? And she's like, I don't know anything. I'm not sure. I was like, this is great for the defense, right? She's not IDing him. Anyway, this is how wrongful convictions occur. Shout out to Leslie and Billy. Welcome. The photo of Mr. Kohberger that the state attached to its response is not relevant and is overly prejudicial. This is akin to the state trying to identify Mr. Kohberger for DM or create its own corroboration for her. I mean, I just disagree because she couldn't have been more clear that she's not identifying him. DM previously said that she would not identify. Literally So, right, that's the point. Are they thinking she's going to identify him in trial? There's no way she's going to do that. There's only 50 bazillion statements of her being like, I don't know. It's not him. I can't tell. You know? There are literally millions of people in the world who might be described as having bushy eyebrows. The term itself is subjective. Yes, and DM would agree. Again, she's not saying it's him. And DM has a fascination with drawing eyes and eyebrows. That's fodder for cross-examination. The state contends that DM statements are independently reliable as law enforcement did not employ a witness. Okay, so this is the part I was curious about. Are they going to bring up Ashley Jennings saying that they showed her a picture? Did not employ a witness identification procedure. Mr. Kohberger is not suggesting, typo, should say that DM's descriptive words were developed in conjunction with a lineup. DM was interviewed 5 times. Law enforcement was involved with each interview. According to the state, DM's multiple descriptions of the intruder were based on her own recollection and were not the result of suggestive identification procedures employed by law enforcement. Mr. Kohberger points to the court the following instances which are suggestive. Shout out to Heather. Shout out to P. Fox, by the way. We were talking about you. We had the members only live stream earlier, and we played Never Have I Ever. And we were all like, we wish you were here because it was your idea. That was what we all seemed to remember, that it was your idea. But don't worry, we will do it again. But it was super fucking fun. So in the second interview on November 13th, 2022, DM was interviewed at the police department by Mallory, who inquired about facial features and asked DM if she knew what color the intruder's eyebrows were. Detective Mallory is the person who mentioned eyebrows, not DM. In the third interview on November 17th, DM was interviewed by Detective Gooch, who asked DM if she knew what a balaclava was and showed her a picture. And then it was so interesting because she literally was like, that's not the type of mask. She completely shot the mask down. And then it says here, right? In the fourth interview, she drew the mask for the interviewer. Oh, a copy of her drawing is attached. Oh, good. I hope we get to see that. It looks remarkably similar to a balaclava, but she said it wasn't. The state argues that DM is a reliable witness. Should the court apply the 5-factor Manson-Beers balancing test to evaluate witness reliability, it should not ignore either the limited amount of time that DM had to view the intruder or the state of her intoxication. A witness is less likely to provide an accurate identification from a fleeting view, and a witness's attention is likely compromised when they are intoxicated. I mean, goes without saying. And then we have a footnote. Oh boy. On Saturday, November 12th, through the early morning hours of November 13th, DM had consumed champagne, 9 to 10 seltzers. Oh my gosh. Borg, what the fuck? A concoction of hard alcohol, water, and flavoring in a big plastic jug. Oh my God. Have you guys ever heard of that before? And an unknown amount of alcohol while participating in a drinking game. Well, I want to know which drinking game. Was it Never Have I Ever? This footnote just recites the alcohol consumed in an approximate 24-hour period and does not include alcohol consumed in the immediate days prior to November 12th. Well, that I don't think would matter, but anyway. So DM saw the intruder briefly in a dark hallway. In her own words, she was probably very drunk. Yeah, and tired when she saw the intruder. Should the court apply a relevance test and weigh the reliability of DM, exclusion of the term Bushy hours is appropriate for all of the reasons explained in the Manson-Biggers balancing test. Intoxication is referenced. I'm shocked that they still haven't brought up the thing about the discrepancy about being shown a picture. If the court decides not to rely on Manson-Biggers and Almaraz, it should consider the scientific studies that explain the fragility and inaccuracy of memory. This analysis, which is applicable to a court's decision to exclude or limit this evidence, is the fact that scientific studies conducted on memory show there are several steps to creating and retaining. Yeah, they're going this route. This is very surprising to me. The science of memory is laid out below. Okay. Wow. I can't believe this seems like this should be a whole separate document if we're going into this. Wow. Welcome back, James. The first phase in the development of memory is the acquisition or encoding phase. The acquisition of memories depends on perception and all of the factors that affect. I mean, I think this all goes up. I feel like we all know this is like common sense, but I understand they're going to have to teach the jury about it. Context of short-term memory are limited and highly subjective. I mean, yeah, this is all common sense to me anyway. Yeah. And then of course, whenever something's highly emotional, it changes the memory. There's a footnote there. Okay. Sensory overload has particular relevance to the encoding phase. Yep. And this has come up in other trials that I've watched. It can lead to so much incomplete sensory acquisition that confabulation, the creation or substitution of false memories through later suggestion. Yeah, just like with false confessions, right? Can occur to fill in the many gaps that exist. So limited lighting, under stress, obviously. She was in a frozen. It's fine. I love that they're bringing this up. Because at this point, that's just that was already a joke, right? But like now, I mean, the state, the way that the fact that the state tried to maintain that for so long and then, doesn't even address that when they then provide all of those communications and stuff just blows my mind. It's like, what? We're just gonna what are they gonna do? Are they gonna just pretend they never said this? I mean, they can't, but it's just crazy to me. Like they didn't think it through. They did not think it through. The next part of the memory process is the retention or storage phase. The brain stabilizes and consolidates memories for storage until they are called upon for retrieval. The amount of data being encoded and retained. Yeah, I always explain it like with my students and stuff. Like it's like our brains are like filing cabinets, right? And we've got like long-term memory and short-term memory. And then when we need to make memory for certain things, we have so much room we can use. And then if we need more room for more things, we have to get rid of other things, right? Yeah, the greater amount of data presented, especially in shorter periods of time, the less that will be retained. A second key factor is retention interval. A third factor, and has the most potentially negative effect on memory retention, the post-event misinformation effect. Exposure to subsequent information affects how and I mean, again, I feel like this goes without saying, but yeah, affects how earlier memories are retained and retrieved. Yep. Let's see what this footnote is, if there's anything interesting. Nope. Okay. And then this means an eyewitness exposed to post-event misinformation can accept erroneous or even Yep. Absolutely. In this case, not only was there an 8-hour delay in reporting prior to the first law enforcement interview, but she was allowed to mingle with BF and many other friends. Law enforcement did not separate them when they came to 112 do King. Prior to interviews, and no warning was given not to discuss the facts. And no effort was made to limit such discussion. Yeah, I mean, in fact, it was the opposite, right? Many of the friends who were at 112 do King Road when police arrived also stayed in the same hotel room the night of November 13th. Interesting. There's also extensive media coverage, as we know. Finally, during the retrieval phase, the brain searches for the pertinent information, retrieves it, and communicates it. This process occurs when eyewitnesses describe what they observed to police, when they participate in identification confrontations, and when they testify in court. Several factors affect retrieval. Time is a very important factor. Memory decay. Again, all this just seems to go without saying. Just wanted to say too, just so to clarify, so competency is different. Competency to stand trial is not a defense to anything. That's not an affirmative, right? So like we saw this with Lori Vallow, for example, right? In Idaho, just to point, like in Idaho, right? Part of the reason why her trial was delayed in Idaho is because they had to determine competency, right? That's like you go through the different assessments, and I think it was like 9 months for her, right? And they try to figure out if you're competent to stand trial. And during that time, by the way, guys, the clock is paused. When I say clock, I mean like the speedy trial clock, right? The clock is paused. And so it's like time stands still, right? And they're determining competency. That's completely different than like an NGI defense. Just to make sure that's clear. So Idaho, of course, I mean, every state, it's required, like they have to make sure you're competent to stand trial, right? They have to. But Idaho does not have an NGI defense. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys who are talking about that. Mikey, welcome. They were talking about you the other night. Happy to see you. Welcome to the Squirrel Crew. Squirrel Crew is the awesomest squirrel crew in the whole world, and probably the only one, but also the awesomest. Speaking of Lori Vallow, we have her new command here, relatively new. Grabbed him by the storm, felt the thunder, saw the lightning flash through the portal. Blunt force trauma. Yes, yes, yes. So, okay. So hopefully that makes sense, right? So again, competency is always a thing, right? But that's just completely different. That's not a defense for trial. Competency is to make sure you are, I mean, we're talking like the base level, right? Because like like Lori was found competent, right? But it took 9 months. She was in a facility and they did all the things. And then after 9 months, they were like, yep, you're competent to stand trial. And now she's representing herself, obviously, right? In Arizona. So, but Idaho does not have an NGI defense. I believe it was done away with in like the 80s or something. It's been a long time. It's been I think a few decades that they got rid of it. Did I see your earlier comment? Probably not, because I'm reading documents and it's really hard to read the chat when I'm reading documents because I only have one set of eyeballs. So you can retype it or let me know. And we have a new member. Awesome. Wonderful. Yeah. And earlier tonight, we had a members only live stream, but we have already tons of member stuff, even though our memberships are new, but welcome. I'm so happy that you're a member. That's awesome. Yes, I've been talking about that. You're so funny, Heather. I talked about that on this stream and I talked about it on the members only stream. I've talked about it a lot. Oh, you listen at work. Okay, cool. Are you in the US or are you in a different country? Because we have squirrel friends from all over the world here. James is still playing Never Have I Ever. That's really funny. If Flash were here, I don't think Flash is here right now, but in terms of the adventurous food, y'all could get Flash on that one because he's had pretty much everything, it seems like. So by the time DM testifies, almost 3 years will have passed after 5 law enforcement interviews where her recitation of the events on November 13th, 2022 changes, and after extensive media coverage about this case, which almost always includes pictures of Mr. Kohberger, memory retrieval. Okay, so in conclusion, I need to point out the thing I just was harping on because this blows my mind, you guys. This blows my mind. Oh, Canada. Awesome. We have a lot of Canadian squirrels. Shout out to Canada. Love it. We have many, many Canadian squirrels. I just have to point this out. Okay. Hang on. I can't believe this. I cannot believe this. Why did the defense not mention this? Okay. Hang on. All right. So Leslie and Billy, also a new member. Yay. That is awesome. Okay, check it out, guys. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Okay, so they're talking about the photo lineups, right? A 6-person video lineup or photo lineup, all that, right? Right? Okay, check it out. This is really important. Okay, check it out. This is so crazy. Okay, listen. All right. So Dylan was interviewed. She relayed that she saw a mugshot of the Bryan Kohberger, oh my God, on the internet. Detective Lake asked DM, is this Bryan Kohberger the person you saw in the mugshot? Is that the person you saw in your house? She said, I have no clue. Yep. Okay. Yeah. But here's the thing, right? There was no law enforcement procedure employed to suggest identification. Most importantly, there was no identification. Yeah, because she didn't make an identification. But what they're saying here, and then they go on to this about this whole thing, they're saying they did not show her a picture. And we talked about this extensively when I covered this the first time. Let me see. I think they probably mentioned it again. Let me just see here. Well, basically, yeah, it's in here. It's in here as well. They repeat it. They're very clear here that they didn't show her a picture, but that instead they just asked her if she'd seen him. Okay. And they did that on purpose, I'm sure, to try to get around having to do the photo lineup thing. But when I covered this initially, I was like, hang on, though, I have a recollection of something different. And let me pull this up just to show you guys, because this is crazy. I don't know why the defense did not bring this up. I am shocked. Hold on, let me pull this up. Just give me one sec. One more second, promise. Okay. Let me back it up a second. Listen, guys. My recollection was, as I thought about it when I was reading this, I was like, why do I feel like Ashley Jennings said something different in the hearing on January 23rd? Well, she did. Listen.
Is that the phone was in the tank. That's true. Regardless, none of this has any and that doesn't matter. Yeah. Defendant then makes some allegations regarding an eyewitness statement.
Listen, guys, listen.
There's kind of two buckets of attacks here. The first bucket is that the defendant claims the magistrate was never informed that DM told law enforcement when shown a picture, DM told law enforcement when shown a picture, didn't recognize.
So because I have a really good map, like it's one of those things, like literally my brain was like, wait, didn't she say, like, that's it? That's exactly what I remembered. And this is when shown a picture. So I'm just shocked that the defense isn't bringing this up, because that's a huge deal. Was she shown a picture? Because the state's whole filing is like, we didn't show her a picture. We just asked her if she had seen it on her own. That's different than being shown one, right? So anyway, I just wanted to point that out for anyone who missed that before, because I was expecting the defense to follow up on that, and they did not. I don't know why. I don't know why. So then here's the conclusion. Wow, most of this was about memory, which is just interesting. Again, for me though, Dylan is a great witness for the defense. I mean, are you kidding me? All right, up next, we have the Amazon click shit. The Amazon click. Okay, so all right. So this is now, so we've covered, just for anyone who's missed anything, right? As far as the last onslaught, as I've been calling it, right? We had gone through everything except for the death penalty motions. And it would have been the state's responses to the death penalty motions, I think, is where we were at. Yeah. I was going to do those tonight, and then all these other documents dropped. So in other words, we've gone through everything, and now we're going through everything again. So the Amazon click activity. So we've got now the reply to the state's response to the defendant's motion. David Howell. Oh yeah, that dude. Okay. That was the other dude they wanted to come in with along with Syray. Okay. That's interesting. Huh. This is interesting. So remember, because the Judge Hippler had denied having witnesses, right? For that. But check it out. And we've covered this document as well, of course, right? Order denying witnesses. However, the court has instructed Mr. Kohberger to have his expert available via video live stream. So it sounds like Judge Hippler is maybe reconsidering, or because that's interesting. Okay, for the first time on March 14th, the state provided an expert disclosure of opinions of Shane Cox and Michael Douglas regarding their opinions related to the Amazon records. This is an example of abusive discovery tactics by the state. There's a pattern of failing to disclose. Every time I read the word pattern, right, there's an office reference there. Turn. My friend Pat took a turn. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Pattern of failing to disclose evidence and expert opinions in compliance with the court's order. These prosecutors blow past deadlines. The tone of these filings, as I've said, with each batch is changing rapidly. This is crazy. These prosecutors blow past deadlines and respond after it is brought to the court's attention and after they have the benefit of having Mr. Kohberger's expert opinions. The state's expert disclosure is 3 months past its deadline, with trial looming in less than 5 months. Mr. Kohberger seeks to protect his rights to due process, effective assistance. Okay, all of the things. Argument. The state seeks to use expert testimony to show that a very narrow set of Amazon records of purchase and click history, related to a K-bar knife sheath makes it more probable than it would be without the evidence that the K-bar knife sheath was found at the crime scene was Bryan Kohberger's, and that the click activity after the homicides makes it more probable than it would be without the evidence that Kohberger had a reason to search for, and one of the things I've pointed out again before when I covered these filings was that it's so interesting how when they're like the whole thing where the state's like, here's the purchase, and it's like gives a week range, and it's like, huh? Because with Amazon, you have all the data, right? They have everything. So how come it's a range of a week? Anyway, but had a reason to search for K-bar knife sheath after the homicides. And one thing too we talked about was that when those searches happened, it was after it had come out, like in the media, right, about the sheath being found. So in other words, there were a lot of people searching for that sheath, right, online. Okay, that Kohberger had a reason to search for the K-bar knife and sheath after the homicides. Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of problems with it, right? As we know, the other thing is so interesting too. Like I pointed out, like whenever in the state's filing, they never say sheath alone. It's never sheath alone. It's always K-bar knife and sheath. So it's not like he searched for a sheath, just the sheath, right? Just the tip. It's always like knife and sheath. And it's so interesting because whenever we spent a lot of time on these other live streams going on Amazon and looking at it, right? And it does what Amazon does, which is like when you click on it, the knives come with a sheath automatically, but then they want to bundle it with an extra sheath and a sharpener, right? So anyway, asserting that lay testimony would be appropriate for these issues, the state claims that Mr. Cox is not needed as an expert because the Amazon records speak for themselves. And then there's a footnote. The state also provided a late disclosure of federal agent Michael Douglas in Amazon data, but does not reference him in its briefing. Yeah, totally. So Mikey's saying the defense is battling 0 to 12. Hopefully I'm saying that correct. I'm not a sports ball person. And hopefully get on a run and get some wins rolling. Yeah. Decisions to make or break our case. Yeah. For sure. So as set forth, right. No, sorry. Hold on. I didn't read this part. Okay. Right. It claims that expert disclosure is given in an abundance of caution on its part. In a separate motion, the state seeks self-authentication of the Amazon records. As set forth in Mr. Howell's declaration, Amazon data is complex. So that's why the self-authentication thing matters, because it's like, what they're basically trying to say, it's almost like a stipulation, right? The self-authentication is like, here's the thing, it is what it is. And that happens a lot in trials, because a lot of times that's necessary, right? Like, it's stuff that doesn't need an explanation. But they're making a point here to say it does need an explanation. This data is complex, right? There's nothing about its production, review, or analysis, algorithm, or machine learning that a lay witness could explain to a jury without proper expert explanation. The data itself is misleading, especially incomplete and cherry-picked data, as is the case here. Not only did the state fail to properly disclose the evidence and expert opinions, but it also advises that it is awaiting additional information from Amazon that the state understands will clarify. Oh, God. They're still waiting on additional information? What is happening? Okay, it will clarify that to the extent AI is incorporated into Amazon's system, AI does not create a user's actual inquiry. Apparently, more like discovery tied to the expert. Yeah, that's a problem. Or it should be a problem, you know. Of note, Mr. Kohberger sought to suppress the Amazon search warrants as overbroad and general warrants because of the extensive amount of records requested. The court denied that motion. Now that the state has disclosed expert opinions, it is clear that the state intends to use incomplete data and mislead the jury. For example, the state ignores that the Amazon records reflect a household. Yeah, and I have talked about that from the get-go. I mean, that's another one of those things I feel like people kind of aren't, I don't know. I'm like, what is wrong with like, I don't know if you want to call it mainstream, whatever. Just basically the thing that everybody else, I guess, was like, oh my God, the knife sheath and the knife. And it's like, for me, the thing that my huge takeaway, my, oh my God moments, plural, from reading those initial filings was, oh my God, it's a household Amazon account and everybody's using it in the family. Like, that's huge. That is huge. And I said, how is the state going to handle that, right, in their filing? Well, they didn't. They just simply, in one little footnote, said, okay, we have a way we can try to connect it to him. And one of the things they said was through testimony, right? Just to try to show that it was definitely him that bought whatever things. But, you know, as I noted previously, when you have a household account, it stores all the credit cards, it stores all the addresses. And so you've got not just the family members, but each family member could have multiple cards and addresses. And like, because I used to have, I don't know if you call it household, but I used to have a joint Amazon Prime account with one of my ex-boyfriends. And like, what I can say is like, I could very easily, if there was ever a reason to, I could have bought something and had it and paid for it with like his card, right? Because it's just on file. And I could have had it sent to any address. And so like, even to show which card was used or which address it went to, when you're dealing with a household account, it doesn't prove anything. It really complicates things. Honestly, that's huge. Like, had it been just his account, be a very different story. But the household account throws everything off, especially because he's got, you know, a couple siblings and they live in different states. And anyway, so yeah, just I'm glad that they're bringing that back up here, because the state is trying to, you know, they didn't really, again, they just talked, they didn't even say the word household, which is what's really funny, right? It shows that what it says to me is they're scared of that. Like, that's not a good fact for them. And they're afraid. They did not use the word household once in that document. All they did was they had that one little footnote that was like, the state is going to, you know, I'm paraphrasing, prove that it was him because of such and such. And the thing that stuck out to me there was one of the things they listed was testimony. So witness testimony. And then, items purchased over a period of several months for a road trip or hiking to include a roadside repair kit, a tire inflator, a backpack, and bear spray. Bear spray. I wonder how that bear is doing. The one from my bear encounter story. The state argues that the rule of completeness does not apply, and therefore it is appropriate that the limited information about Amazon be placed in front of the jury. This argument ignores and violates Mr. Kohberger's right to present a complete defense, as Justice Potter Stewart wrote. Whatever. Okay. Allowing the state to produce limited data without context and methodology of how Amazon works is akin to telling the jury it may assess the product of an investigation, but that it may not analyze the quality of the investigation that produced the product. This illogically removes from the jury potentially relevant information. credibility, and perhaps more importantly, the weight to be given evidence produced by an investigation. Yeah, the bear story. Hope the bear's doing good. Shout out to the bear. Mr. Howell explains the critical need for full data and an understanding of what it means to click on Amazon. Ooh. That reminds me, I had something I was going to order on Amazon. Oh yeah, orchid fertilizer. Anyway, okay. Click data sounds like a specific user action when in fact Amazon's algorithm, machine learning, and methods of paid advertisements force information to account users which fall under the definition of click data. Features like customers also bought. Yeah, literally all see that, right? Frequently bought together. Yep. Omni-channel influence. I don't know what the fuck that means. And household accounts with multiple users have a significant impact on what is considered click data. Additionally, Amazon notifies users of items bought in the past as a reminder. It does do that. That's a good point, because if you buy it one time, then it might, I mean, literally, it does that, right? As a reminder, which can be interpreted as click data. Logs of this are retained by Amazon. Conclusion, for these reasons, they want to exclude the dude. They want to call the other dude, Mr. Howell, as a witness. And yeah, all right. Should the court allow the state to continue in its abuse of deadlines and incomplete expert disclosures by allowing this evidence, Mr. Kohberger seeks to confront the Amazon evidence at trial with the testimony of Mr. Howell. Okay. Next up. Oh, now we're on to the state. We're all for this one. Okay, text messages and testimony. All right. So one thing that you guys who are here drove me crazy. I was like, oh my God, right? Because, and actually I have a, hold on. I saved those. How did I save those? Let me pull this up. Because one thing I thought was really interesting going through it the first time through was who decided what was coming in and, you know, and all that. Like, what do they leave in? What do they leave out? Okay, so here's this one. Let me see. Okay, I just want to show you guys this real quick because this sets the scene before we get into this. So let me pull this up. Sets the scene, sets the stage. All right. So this is the defense filing, right? For the text messages and testimony. Yep, that was I. That was I. Yep, that was me. So P. Fox is saying, was it me who got on Amazon? Yep. And so the knife comes with the $96 one. It comes with the leather one, but then the bundle pack comes with the black sheath that looks like it's plastic or something. And it comes with the sharpener. Yep. That was me. And that's the thing. I'll tell you what, Jose Baez is a great example of this. That's why he's my favorite defense attorney. He makes every witness his witness, and not in a way that is very unique. His demeanor is very different. I've never seen a defense attorney like it. He charms everybody with every single witness because, you know, I've been covering Casey Anthony as well. It's like the defense's case in chief, their first like 12 witnesses in a row were all law enforcement from the state's case in chief. And then their first slew of experts were the state's expert witnesses that the state didn't call. And then they called more law enforcement. I mean, but even when it was the state's case in chief, with every single witness, he just gets up there, good morning, how's it going? And I can't even do it. It's like he smiles, he puts everybody at ease. It is amazing. It's amazing. It's like, instead of being like aggressive or whatever, he takes the complete opposite approach, complete opposite. And it's very genuine. It doesn't come across as fake or sleazy. It is incredible. There's not a single witness in that entire fucking trial that he did not make a defense witness. I feel like that's an understatement. Anyway, it's just incredible to watch. So I know I'm getting sidetracked. I'm just thinking about how much I love that lawyering. So, but it is interesting because it is a very different style. I've never seen a defense attorney have that style on cross. It's incredible to witness, really. Oh, that's right. We did that whole tangent with girlfriends. That was hilarious. And the blow up dolls. That was amazing. That was so much fucking fun. By the way, for any of you who are new, I do really specific timestamps, and I'm still getting caught up on certain live streams to finish timestamps. But for all the BK live streams, everything's is caught up. and they're very specific. So whether it's something that's funny, like the girlfriends, or something that's especially important, they're all timestamped. So that for anyone who's on replay crew, or also if I'm like, what was that one thing we did? You know, I can find it. So it helps me out as well. But anyway, just to point that out too. So, and this is another thing that we talked about too, was like, we talked about how there seems like there should be, you know, like a product code or whatever. I forget what the actual term is, you know, that they use, but you know, a stamp on it that's like, or whatever, a code, but like that apparently that doesn't exist either, which is I think what you're kind of saying here, that they don't have UPC labels, right? To match your trace production, sale, or delivery. Yep. That's what we were talking about too. And that was interesting. Serial number, right. P Fox, that's fucking hilarious. When she's talking, just add water, don't be cheap, Twiz, make it a Fuji, grow a classy hoe. That's amazing. Thank you. And does everybody know that Twiz had a date yesterday? Did everyone hear about Twiz's date? By the way, speaking of timestamps, I have a timestamp for that live stream called Twiz's date. That was from yesterday. I timestamped it Twiz's date. So yes, so this document. So this is what really stood out to me here is, okay. So where I have it highlighted here, everything that's highlighted here is things that the defense included in their filing that the state left out. So new information. But the thing that pissed me the fuck off, for anyone who missed it, is that the defense left a lot out. And it's hypocritical. And I'm you know, I try to be very objective, right? So when the defense, and even tonight there was something, you know, the defense not bringing up the fact that Ashley Jennings said they showed Dylan a picture. And even before that, there was something else. Like, in other words, I call the defense out when I'm like, hey, come on now, right? But y'all know, if there's something that I hate more than anything, it's hypocrisy. You know, it's hypocrisy. And so the thing is they're arguing, right, with this, the rule of completeness, right? Like that's their whole thing that they're arguing here, that the state didn't bring all it in for context. And in the very same turn, right, in the same breath, they're leaving things out. And not only are they leaving things out that weren't in the state's filing, they're leaving things out that were in the state's filing. I can't even. I'll just get too mad. So anyway, so I fixed it. So I highlighted everything that defense included that the state left out, but everything that the state included that the defense left out, I typed in manually. That's why it's edited. So we have all these, but then, you know, the length of that phone call we learned from the state. And then, so this we didn't have from the state, but we had it from the defense. And then now what's interesting, both the state and the defense have all this the same. And then the highlight color is different. It's just because it picked a different color. It doesn't mean anything. So these again are from the defense. Now the please answer. So in other words, what the text was left out. I cannot. So they put this part, but they left out what the text was. So I added that in because it was in the state's filing. There's more of that. Look at this, like all this shit right here, right? This was in the state's filing, right? So the defense includes that, but they left out what the texts were. So I included those right here. I think there might be more, maybe not. Anyway, so I just wanted to, okay, so that's basically, I just wanted to show that for context here, that this is what's going, there's a war going on, right? The state discloses, remember when it feels like forever ago, when the state dropped this document, we first got some of these messages, right? Then the defense sends their filing in, and it's like, look, we're going to give you even more. We're going to give you more. But at the same time, they're also leaving shit out. And now we have another filing from the state. So they're all trying to, the way I interpret this is like, they're all kind of trying to one up each other, right? And the thing is like, it's all selective, right? There's just so much strategy here on what they're going to share and when and how they're using it. This is all this thing, right? It's very interesting. So, oh yeah, official. Well, he had a date with Rhett, but then we shipped him an official. Official was here earlier. He's one of our squirrel friends. Yeah, we even gave them their couple's name there. Okay, so so now we have another, now it's the state's turn again. All right. Defendant includes additional records. Yes, they did. From DM and BF's phone for the court's review. However, using the records provided in the defendant's response does not change the rules of evidence, Rule 801 and 803 analysis. Oh, good. And do y'all? Okay, quick. Before, I haven't looked at this yet. I'm scrolling back up. Anybody who was here last time when I covered the when we went through this, right before, was anybody here? And do y'all remember what I said was going to happen? We talked about this. We talked about the whole thing with the 911 call and with the text messages and with the, is it hearsay? Is it not hearsay? Are there exceptions? Does anybody remember what I said? Oh, official's still here. Awesome. Love it. Does anybody remember what I said? It was probably on the most recent Idaho live stream, actually. So let me know. Okay, well, I'll just tell you guys. So what I said was they're going to have to go through them one by one individually and figure out, is it hearsay? Is it not hearsay? Is there an exception? That they're going to have to take them one at a time. Literally, that's what I said. Oh, fuck. You do remember? God damn it. I already answered it. Is that what you were going to say? Oh yeah. And I already read that part. That was we read that part that they were in the hotel. So I was like, they're going to have to just take them one by one, because of the thing is that some of them I don't think are hearsay, and some of them might be hearsay, but there might be an exception. And then there's the different exceptions that the state has mentioned, right? Which is excited utterance and present tense impression. But there could also be additional exceptions that apply. And one by one. Yep. Literally. Yep. And what do we have? One by one. So I'm just taking a look at something here real quick. Right. So when they mentioned, so we all know, right, that 801 is hearsay. Rule 803 is the public records, or different types of records. Well, actually, it's still an exception to hearsay, isn't it? Yeah. So, right. So 801 is like, what is hearsay? And then 803 is your exceptions. Yeah. 801 is what is hearsay. 803 is your exceptions. So, okay. I'm trying to see what trying to relate Dylan. So hearsay, we'll just review. What is hearsay? Hearsay is a statement made outside of court that is offered for the truth of the matter asserted. That is so important. So what is, and a statement can be verbal, it can be oral. And according to the other shit that we read, which drives me crazy, they even said a gesture or like body language basically can be considered a statement, which I think is ridiculous, because I was like, how are you mind reading? Like that's the dumbest thing I've ever fucking heard. How can you? Okay. But anyway, so a statement, right? Because, in the law, they have to define everything and break it down. So it's a statement made outside of court. And just to reiterate, that doesn't just mean testifying in a trial, right? So in court, right, an in-court statement would include hearings, but also depositions or affidavits. Anytime you're under oath, that counts as an in-court statement, okay? So an out-of-court statement, right, but it has to also be offered for the truth of the matter asserted, okay? That's hearsay. I'll repeat it one more time. Yep. So a statement made outside of court being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. So if something's not hearsay, you don't need an exception. You only need an exception if something is hearsay. So that's the first step. Step one, is it hearsay? Step two, if it is, then is there an exception? So, okay. So this first one here. So 2:10:29 a.m. DM to EG, inquiring if he was driving, and then not hearsay, not for the truth of the matter asserted. So what does this mean? It means that they're not offering this to prove that somebody was that the Uber driver was driving. That's what they're saying. So they're saying it's not hearsay. 2:13. So EG to DM confirming he was driving, not hearsay, not for the truth of the matter asserted. I mean, I would agree, unless there's some reason we don't know about yet why it matters if the Uber dude was driving, but I don't think that's the case. MM calls BF, not hearsay, not a statement. That's true. It's not a statement. DM creates a new contact in her phone, not hearsay, not a statement. True. I do appreciate, I will say, and it's color coded. It's not often that I have an opportunity to compliment the state. I'm going to compliment the state for this. And here's why. It's a color coded chart. And instead of, and literally, this is what I said the solution was. And instead of them just skirting the issue or whatever, they're actually going one by one, and it's fucking color coded. Now I want to know I'm going to try to figure out what the colors mean. Do they have a key on here? What is okay. So because the green and the, okay. I don't know yet what the color coded means. Interesting. Has anyone figured that out? That would be double hearsay. That would be double hearsay. So with 911 calls, I mean, 911 calls pretty much always come in. So in my opinion, and Judge said as much as well, the 911 call, I don't think that's hearsay. I wouldn't think it's hearsay. And here's why. It's not because somebody's telling somebody. That's not why. I would say it's not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. In other words, right? Here's what I mean. That if you take any of the statements that are in there, they're not accurate, right? For example, somebody's unconscious. That's not even accurate, right? It's like the 911 call is not being like, in my view, and Judge agreed, it's really not for the truth of the matter asserted. I mean, because everything that's said on there that could be considered a statement, a factual statement, like none of it's accurate. And then other than that, you just have the dispatchers asking questions, right? So, but even if it is hearsay, there's so many exceptions that could apply, but I would not consider it hearsay. But let's just say, for the sake of the example, that something there was offered for the truth of the matter asserted, as in it does qualify as hearsay. Then in that case, okay, it doesn't even matter if somebody tells somebody something else. Like if somebody finds that a 911 call at all with just it being a phone, like okay, remember, right? What is hearsay? An out of court statement made, an offer for the truth of the matter asserted. So in other words, is it out of court? Yeah, it's out of court, right? So the only thing that really matters is to determine if it's hearsay or not. It doesn't even matter. You could just have one person on the phone, right? For the 911 call. You still have to say, are the statements there being offered for the truth of the matter asserted? So does that make sense? So like, even if it's just one person. Now, if you determine that is the case, there's so many exceptions that can apply. That's why I believe 911 calls, they always come in trials. Does that make sense? Right. And I understand what you're saying, because the term hearsay makes it seem like what it means is you hear somebody else say something. No, nope. That's not what it is. I understand that that's what it seems like. And that could be that makes logical sense. That it's like somebody told me, no, if you're talking about that, now you're working with double, maybe triple or quadruple hearsay. Okay. So, and for example, you have self-serving hearsay, right? So like, for example, in Det v. Heard, in that trial, right, it's a civil, so it's different. But because there was a counterclaim from Amber Heard, right? So like it was a whole thing. Like Amber would be on the stand, right? And she'd be trying to be like, I told somebody this thing happened, right? Like then I told Johnny, objection, hearsay. And the reason why is because she would say, I told so-and-so this thing. And she was offering it for the truth of the matter asserted to show that, to try to make it like an event, something happened, right? And it was self-serving hearsay. And she kept doing it over and over again. It was so annoying. So my point being that just to show you guys, even if you're like, I told somebody, right? Because you might think, oh, how's that hearsay? It's like it's what I said. That's still hearsay because it's a statement made outside of court being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. So it's really quite pretty much what you guys have to think about too. Like when you think about that definition, like most things are hearsay, right? For so much evidence in trial is actually hearsay, but it's just that then there's exceptions. So it's way more broader than being like, it's not just like the game of telephone, right? Oh, let me see here. Gotcha. Oh, thank you, official. Oh, maybe you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. Thank you, official. Yeah, so green is DM, does something. Maybe blue is Bethany. Okay, thank you. And then white is somebody else. Okay, thank you, official. Thank you. That was awesome. Right. And that's the thing is that if lawyers are talking to each other, right, they're going to be talking about things differently than if they're talking to the audience on YouTube. Because at least for people that I watch on LawTube, they explain things very well. But if you were to put a bunch of them in a room together, it'd be a very different situation. Okay, good. I'm glad that makes sense to you guys. So excited. So are you talking about for the text messages or for the 911 call with the excited utterance? But that's going to be a whole separate thing. Like we have to keep in mind, right? The text messages is completely separate from the 911 call. And in terms of what is hearsay, what's not, it's a whole different analysis. That's why they're different filings. So so right now we're discussing, this is the text messages. So it's a different thing. Okay, 911. So we'll wait to go through whenever we pull up the other filings about the 911 call, we will go through that because it might be that they go through a statement by statement. I just haven't gone through all of these yet. So we'll table that until we get to that filing. So because right now this is just the text messages and testimony. But this is good. So we're gonna, with that being said, now we're getting all this, right? This is how they're analyzing it, right? And assessing it. Is it hearsay? Is it not? All right. So then BF calls DM. So the record of the call itself is not hearsay since it's not a statement, right? In addition, BF and DM should be able to testify. Now that's the thing. So then the testimony about the call. Now this is where it gets different. So the call itself, that's not a statement. But then testifying about what was said in the call, that's hearsay. And so what they're saying is, and why does it matter? Why am I saying it's hearsay? Because whatever was discussed in this call at 4:19:07 OM, oh my God, let me say it again. 4:19:07 AM, the state intends to offer for the truth of the matter asserted. What do I mean? Let's just say that at 4:19:07 AM, BF calls DM and is like, hey, what's your favorite color? And then DM is like purple. And it's like, awesome, cool, thanks. And for some reason, let's just say the state wanted to get that call in and they wanted them to testify about it. My guess, unless there's some case where purple matters, right, or whatever, it wouldn't be hearsay for them to testify about it. Why? Because it's not for the truth of the matter asserted. You know what I mean? It's like that's not relevant. But the reason the state wants this in, right, is because whatever they're going to testify that they said on that phone call is being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, which is why they need an exception. So what they're saying is the testimony, the exception that they're offering here is present sense impression. So let me explain why this matters. What this means to me is what we can expect them to testify about at this 4:19:07 AM phone call. What they're going to be testifying about that they spoke of is their present sense impressions, as in what they were experiencing at the time. So they're going to be like, this is what we were talking about, they're going to relay that conversation, and their conversation was what they thought was going on, right? Present sense impressions. So that's very interesting. Thank you so much for the super chat. You're very welcome. I'm always happy to answer questions, you guys. Okay, then DM calls Xana not a statement, so it's not hearsay. I mean, right here, this makes it loud and clear, right? That sums it up, right? If it's not a statement, first of all, then it can't be hearsay. And it'll be interesting to see if they say any of these are not being offered for the truth. So DM calls KG, again, not hearsay, not a statement. DM calls BF, and you were definitely right about the color coding. Thank you for that, official. So the record of the call itself is not hearsay since it's not a statement. And then now we're on to this. The testimony, right? Same thing. So this time, interesting. Okay, look at the difference. So at this phone call at 4/19/07, they're saying that the exception to hearsay, and when I say hearsay, I mean the testimony about what was discussed in the phone call, the exception that they are offering is present sense impressions. Now here, present sense impressions and or excited utterances. So what we can expect here, that's very interesting. So there, the excited utterance does come up. I know you were asking about that for the 911 call, Happy Annie, but it's brought up here for that. So, so remember, the whole thing, part of the thing about the excited utterance is usually there's part of the question there is the declarant, and the declarant is the person making the statement, right? Is there's a certain amount of stress involved, right? And so, yeah, the thing being like the startling being a big component there of it. And then the other thing too. So like with a presence impression, it can be immediately after an event, right? There's a little bit more of a gray area there in terms of the time, the proximity and time to the event. An excited utterance is like as the thing is happening, you're startled and you say, "Oh my God," blah, 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 or whatever, right? Like for example, "Oh my God, he just killed Kenny." I don't know. I'm just making something up, right? That would be an excited utterance, like as it happens, and you're like, a present sense impression. There's that gray area because it could be immediately after, right? And in fact, again, this came up in other trials, including Deppie Heard, where like, it would be 45 minutes later or whatever. And like Elaine tried to be like present sense impressions, like, nope. So, but you could say it's 5 minutes. This is where the argument comes in, right? Like that is all a thing, right? Just how close to the present moment. And that's where they talk about, we've seen this in the other filings, right? Did they have time to reflect or fabricate? And that's really the thing. Because the law can't say it's 5 minutes on the dot. If it's prior to 5 minutes, it's still present sense. If it's after 5 minutes, nope, it's not. This doesn't work like that, right? So, it's going to be a case by case basis, and it's going to be looked at one statement at a time. And it's going to be, did the declarant have time to fabricate and reflect? So. Okay, so let me see what you guys are saying here. Yeah, and for anyone who also has, again, just to reiterate too, we've talked a little bit. I have not listened to the 911 call for numerous reasons. I think I heard like 10 seconds of it, like kind of on accident or whatever. I've read, we've gone through the transcript. I'm not going to be listening to that or playing it or doing anything with that until it comes out through the court record. So. But yeah, but there's definitely, there's a lot of it is definitely unusual, based off of the the transcript, right? I mean, for example, I can't remember if it's Dylan or Bethany. I guess it's Bethany gets the street wrong. She calls it King's Road. I mean, there's just some weirdness, lots of weirdness, obviously. Welcome back, Kat Randall. Happy to see you again. So yeah, South Park. Yeah, that was a South Park reference. So, okay. So, but I think it's in. So my point being, when they testify about this phone call at 4/20/28, what will be different is that whatever it is they're going to say, there's going to be a different context there than the call at 4/19, in that potentially there's an excited utterance that one of the girls made. And thinking like the example I made, what was the example I made? Oh my God, they killed Kenny. Maybe it'll be, oh my God, I just saw like, I don't know what it'll be. There's an excited utterance. So it could be like present sense impression is like, man, this seems like this is weird, da da da, or whatever. And then it's like, and then something startling happens, and then it's like, oh my God, da da da, right? That's what I would expect this phone call to be about. So I think this is interesting. What I love about this is that just from looking at the hearsay analysis, you can get a picture to a certain extent of what we can expect them to be testifying about, which is what's so cool. All right, then at 4/21, not hearsay, not a statement. Again, there's several of those. Then we have, okay, now we have the text messages. Okay, so no one is answering. They're saying present tense impression and or excited utterance. I would say it's present tense impression. I don't know about excited. I wouldn't call that excited utterance. And then I'm really confused right now. Again, I would call that present tense impression. Kaylee, yeah, not hearsay, not offered for there it is. Remember when I said, when are we going to get to this? There it is. They're beautiful. I was waiting for it. Oh my God, I just got goosebumps. I'm such a nerd. Because there it is. You guys, there it is. This right here, hopefully this hammers the point home. What is hearsay and what is not? So this text message that says, Kaylee, not hearsay, not for the truth of the matter asserted. You guys see? You guys see? You guys see? It's very good. Very good. Very good. And then alternatively, a present sense impression. No, it's not hearsay. No one's I mean, yeah, it's just the word Kaylee. Okay. Then what's going on? Present sense impression and or excited utterance. You know, some of this might depend on their testimony. And here's what I mean by that. Because it could be that excited utterance might apply here if something happened that spurred this on. For example, there was a crazy noise or whatever it is, right? And then that text message was in response to that. It could be an excited, but I would say it's definitely a presence impression here. And then we have the Snapchat. The record of the message itself is not hearsay since it is not a statement. So what that means, again, the record that a message happened, right? The content of the message would be a present sense impression. And then, yeah, dude, WTF. I mean, that's just like such a normal text that everybody has. I feel like you'd almost just say it's not even hearsay, but you know, in other words, what's interesting here is it means that they are offering this for the truth of the matter asserted, right? Which is something's messed up, something's what the fuck, which is interesting. I mean, it seems like it goes up saying, but anyway, Xana was wearing all black. So that's interesting. So it's being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, which is interesting, right? Like that Xana was wearing black. I find that interesting. They could have said not hearsay, not offered for the truth of the matter asserted, as in they're not. What I mean is this. If for some reason it mattered what colors clothing was Xana wearing, if that mattered, or for any trial, right? And it was like they needed to know what color clothing somebody was wearing. And then there was a text message that was like, so-and-so was wearing all black or whatever colors. And the way that they were going to try to prove somebody was wearing those colors was through a text message or somebody says it, then that's being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. And so the reason I'm surprised is because I'm like, oh, they're actually offering this for the truth of the matter asserted, as if they want to use this to prove Xana was wearing all black. I wouldn't have thought that was, I'm just surprised by that. In other words, it seems like they want to they're using this to prove that she was wearing all black. That's crazy to me. Where do you mean specifically, Mikey? So the thing is there could have been another text in between these. Remember, we don't know. We don't know what we don't have, right? We only know what exists that either one or both of the sides have put in. So there could have been, maybe there's not enough time for a phone call, but there could have been another text message in between, like, for example, the "yeah, dude, WTF," and then the Xana was wearing all black. But my thought from this was like that this was referencing maybe what they talked about on the phone, right? For example, remember the second phone call, right? When I said, oh, wow, the second phone call is different. Why? Excited utterances, right? My thought now is like maybe on that second phone call, maybe the excited utterance is DM is like, I just saw somebody wearing all black. That's an excited utterance. And then it would make sense for this. So if you think about, if let's just walk through it, right? Let's just say that on this phone call with the excited utterance, DM is like, they're talking on the phone. And she's like, oh my God, I just saw somebody walk by in all black. Okay. Then the next communication between those two is no one is answering. I'm really confused. What's going on? Yeah, dude, WTF. Then you could see that this would make sense because it's like she's offering an explanation of potentially what Dylan saw. Like maybe it's not some intruder because Xana was wearing all black. Like this makes sense, right? If you something crazy like that is happening, it makes sense to me that you would be like, well, hold on, there's got to be an explanation, right? Welcome, Moonvale. Welcome. Yeah, does that make sense? So when you look at it and when you go like back to back like that, this makes sense to me of like Bethany was like thinking and she's like, well, Xana was wearing all black, like trying to like so that Dylan like to offer an explanation as to what Dylan saw. But I fully think that is what's we're gonna hear about from that phone call. Or sorry, this green one. And then all of these this is all the same for the hearsay, right? Said utterance in our present sense. But remember, the point being, all of these are being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, including this. Phone is going to die, fuck. Here's the thing. That means the state is using this to prove that Dylan's phone was going to die, which is wild to me because we all know from Murdoch that the Celebrate extractions show battery life. And that's interesting to me. This is interesting because why would they not use that to prove her phone is dying? Anyway, so they're using this statement, right? Phone is going to die, fuck. If that wasn't being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, as in that the phone is going to die, it would be not hearsay, not offered for the truth of the matter asserted, like what we saw here beautifully. That one. I would have expected that, but we don't have that. They are offering it for the truth of the matter, which means that the phone's going to die. That is insane. That's insane. You don't have to be sorry. No, that's okay. No, I mean, they are separated by, those other couple texts, but and then again, all of these, again, these are all being offered through that. And then we have not hearsay, not a statement. So 42740, the Snapchat message here. The record is not hearsay, right? It's not a statement. The content would be present sense impression. So whatever DM Snapchats at 42740 is a present sense impression. Interesting. Wow. Whoa. I can't wait for trial, dude. We're going to learn so much. Yeah, for sure. About if they're not going to use the Celebrate. That is insane, isn't it? I agree with you guys that are saying that in the chat. Because you guys know how I feel about Celebrate reports and phone shit. Like, I'm like, give us the phone data. Give it to me. Give it to me, baby. What song was that? Oh yeah, that song. Anyway, okay. And then again, not hearsay, not a statement, and there you go. The state's evidence. So this is the other thing I was wondering. I was like, if they slept, when did they sleep? And one of the things I saw, I was like, well, they could have slept from 4:37 to like, I think it's like 8 o'clock or something. If just going from memory, they could have had, so basically like a little nappy thing, right? Because there is a period of time, assuming that assuming there's nothing missing from the cell activity that we've seen in here, which we know it's not everything, right? But one of the things I had said was, I was like, well, ostensibly they could have maybe gone to sleep shortly, or briefly, but the state is saying this. The state's evidence will show that they went to sleep after 4. So what this means is like this, what I would expect this to be, is that they do intend to potentially bring in their Celebrate reports, but at this juncture, because how else are you going to prove that they went to sleep? The only way you can prove that is like they're not using their fucking phones, right? I would think. I don't know how else you're going to prove that. I mean, I guess their testimony. But fuck. With the reliability factor, I would want this. I would want the Celebrate report. Well, I do anyway. Mikey gifted a membership. Thank you so much. Awesome. Woo. Party Central. We don't know. We don't know if or how or what, but like, Celebrate shows when it's plugged in. Celebrate shows the battery status. Oh, fuck. Keep reading, Chelsea. Are you up? This is a joke, right? This is a joke, right? Is this a joke? This is a joke? Hang on. So never mind. So they're not, wait, what? Is this what you gotta be kidding. So the text message, are you up? Wait. But then it says not offer for the truth. Well, never mind. Okay, I take it back. I spoke too soon. The reason I started freaking out is because I was like, oh my God, are they going to rely on a text message? Are you up? But also that's to the deceased victims there. But I thought maybe they were going to be like relying on that to prove that it means somebody woke up, right? But then it says not offered for the truth. So they're going to have some other way. Maybe it's a testimony. Hopefully it's Celebrate, right? For fuck's sake. But they're going to try to prove they went to sleep after 4:37. And in case you were wondering, so remember when I was like referencing, all the other activity that was like at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. or whatever, right? That could show potentially when they woke up, if there's a gap in their activity. Again, we don't have all of it, but just if that's the case, right? And I was like, and if in case you're like, well, where is it? Here we go. This is why. Other communications and interactions on social media during this time frame is irrelevant for the purposes of this court making an admissibility determination. Regarding DM and BF, other communications, defendant will have the opportunity to cross-examine them at trial. So they're like, we're not discussing those because basically here I see what they're saying, but the real reason is because they're like not even, this is the thing. This is the whole thing. They're like, we're not even going to waste time on this. That shit. So like, okay. Hold on. Let me back up. So, well, you guys all saw that document, right? And there was so much shit that was crazy. The Instagram, the Indeed, and all that, right? And all this stuff that Dylan, and it's like, oh my God, right? And so what does the state do? They're like, we're not even going to waste our time on it. Like, if this is the whole, what do you call it? It's like the gamesmanship, but this is what you see. So, and both sides are doing it. This is where it gets really interesting, right? With these filings, because it's like, we're not even gonna give it the time of day. That shit is so irrelevant. And I don't just mean them being like, it's irrelevant. I mean, the tone in this to me is like, yeah, this is like them trying to be gutsy or ballsy or whatever. Like, yeah, that doesn't matter. Like, we're not worried about that. Right? So they're like, not even going to bring it up. They're not even going to discuss it. It's like, because sometimes you'll see it where it's like things are ignored because they're ignoring it because, well, there's a variety of reasons. But the tone is changing in these filings, and I find it very interesting. So I'm noticing a shift to where sometimes when things are ignored, it could be to try to send a message to the other side. Gamesmanship. Anyway, okay. So regarding DM and BF, they left off the apostrophe S. Other communications defendant will, right, we already read that. And then there's the conclusion. Yeah, Jack, that's Kaylee's. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. His last name starts with a D. That's Kaylee's, or was Kaylee's boyfriend. What is a waste cat? I mean, I'm sure you could be referencing many different things. What was insane to you, Mikey? I don't remember what I was saying a minute ago. I mean, there's so much that's insane. So, but I'm just curious what you were referencing there. So now, I'm just looking here. Let's go to the timing. Twiz, are you still listening? Oh, the 8:30 a.m. stuff. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. For sure. And so, it's similar to objections, right? When it comes to trial strategy. So that's one of those things, right? Because sometimes when you object to something in trial, you draw more attention to it, right? So that's a choice that they have to, both parties have to make, whether it's civil or criminal, is you sometimes if something's really bad, you might not want to object because you don't want to draw more attention to it. Because especially if the jury's kind of nodding off and it's been kind of like a lot of the same thing. And then it's like something bad might come out that the jury might not realize is that bad, especially if they're not really paying attention. And then all of a sudden, objection, right? And now they're awake and now they're like, what's going on, right? So anyway, but it draws attention to it. So it's a similar type thing, right? So for the state to acknowledge that, all that stuff in the morning, it's acknowledging that it matters, right? Exactly. It's like a poker face. For any of you guys who are funny, sorry. Earlier in the members only live, when we were doing Never Have I Ever Stripped Poker came up. So when you said poker face, I just thought back to that and it was funny. We had fun. Okay, so wait, I meant to share this. Okay, so yes, is Twiz here? Because we're going to go through AT&T timing. So this is a long one. I haven't not gone through all this yet, obviously, because there's a fuck ton. But this is the state's reply. So remember what happened previously with this is that what the defense, their main point with the AT&T timing advance records was like, what they're fighting about is being able to tell the jury that records were late coming in. That's what they're fighting about, right? That the defense wants to be able to tell the jury that some of these records didn't come in when they came in later than others. And essentially it's like fodder for cross is the way that they phrased it. And like, they mentioned the crop. They mentioned wanting to be able to cross on this lots of times in these documents. And then the state is like, said they like, what did they, I don't even fucking remember. They're like, whatever. And then, but the defense's whole thing is like, I actually had like a summary. Let me see if I can find that. I had like a highlighted thing that I made of the point because it's, where is it? Hold on. Let me just find that real quick. Easier than pulling up the document. That's not it. Well, basically, if I can't find it, so it's basically like, they didn't turn it over in a time. Wait, I found it. Never mind. Okay, I found it. All right. The state attempting to say the reports were not available until GLDC produced them is nothing more than asking the court for permission to hide the state's failure to disclose Mr. Kohberger's AT&T timing advance report. So in other words, they're saying the state failed to disclose the report and they want to show the jury the state's failure to disclose it. And then the last thing there is like that the state misrepresents the availability of the timing advance. So it's the disclosure of the records and the availability of the records, and not what the records contain, not the data within the records, but they want to be able to say that the state failed to disclose them. And that's something that would come out on cross. And then the availability of them. That's what it is. That's what they've been fighting about. Okay. So I wanted to give that context as we go into the next filing here. So now we have the state's reply to the objection to the state's motion in limine. So, Kat, I don't know. We don't really ever talk about politics on this channel. I'm not up to the speed on that. And I think it's just whatever. I don't know. I have no idea. I assume that's what you're referencing when you say House, like House of Representatives. I have no idea. So, okay. Timing advance records refer to data that is used by providers to estimate the location of a mobile device. This collection of data is necessary for a cellular network to work properly. Carriers do not retain this data indefinitely. Regarding AT&T, before June of 2023, AT&T retained timing advance records for 7 days. These records were not routinely provided in response to legal demand. After June 2023, AT&T started providing these records pursuant to legal demand and began retaining timing advance records for 13 months. In this case, the homicides occurred on November 13th. Bryan Kohberger was identified as a suspect on November 19th. Search warrants for his AT&T records were executed on December 23rd. At this point, timing advance records were not available for Bryan Kohberger's phone to cover the relevant time period. November 13th, 2022. Yep. Despite defendant's repeated assertions, the fact of the matter is that AT&T did not provide timing AT&T did not provide timing advance records to law enforcement for Bryan Kohberger's phone. The state is attaching affidavits from AT&T verifying that the state did not receive timing advanced records for Bryan Kohberger's phone. That was on Jennings. I thought that was very interesting in the defense filing, right? That the defense was like, hey, this is the one thing Mallory did right. If there's anything, right? Mallory wanted to get it. He went to what's his face, Balance, and said, how do I word it? How do I ask for it? Balance was like, here's what you do. The two of them were trying to get it. And then Jennings, the buck stopped with her. They like sent it through to her or whatever. And then that's where it ended. That was what I got gleaned from that was they're like, yeah, they tried to get it, but the prosecutor, and you see why, right? That's a much bigger deal. It's a much bigger deal when you've got the law enforcement people actually trying to get it and they're trying to do, and then the prosecutor makes a decision not to get those records and serve that warrant. That was like, you know, this is war, like in a way, right? Of like, dude, calling her, not just calling her out, but like, honestly, it's like the first time that there was anything that seemed like you could say about Mallory, that was like, he did the right thing. He did the right thing. And so did Balance. Like they tried. And Jennings is where it went, you know? So I thought that was interesting. No, they do. They definitely do intertwine. It's just that it's not possible, humanly possible to keep up with everything. Right. And like between the two, I obviously spend my time and energy focusing on, you know, I mean, legal issues definitely matter, but like politics, a lot of it is just so toxic. And you guys know how I feel about that stuff, right? Because I stay away from that with everything. So anyway, I don't know. There's definitely overlap, like in terms of public policy and all kinds of stuff. But like a lot of the stuff when it comes to politics is just not where I want to spend my time or energy, if that makes sense. So I do agree they intertwine, and there's definitely important issues, but like a lot of what you end up seeing with politics is just not maybe what I'm thinking of when I think of important policy issues, you know? I don't know. There's just a lot of yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's clear that the day they had access to it. Yeah. That was very clear in the defense filing when they went through the whole thing with the GLDC. I'm just reading what you guys are saying in the chat. So let's go back real quick. This is a good question. Let's just go back real quick. Let me find this to make this clear. Okay. Okay. At the onset of this investigation, detectives with the Moscow Police Department began obtaining call detail records as part of the investigation. In doing so, they heavily relied on assistance from Nick Balance with the FBI. Detectives Mowry and Payne were tasked with writing search warrants to AT&T for a number of record requests. On November 15th, Mowry requested verbiage via email. This is the part I was just referencing. On November 15th, Mowry requested verbiage via email from SA Balance in reference to AT&T records. An email string that was produced by the state in discovery contains a very clear account of SA Balance's knowledge of AT&T timing advance being available. SA Balance's email to Mowry states, subject, AT&T tower dump. Nelos became location database of record a little while back. List that and timing advance since both are applicable with them now. Nick Balance. So he's telling, and we heard Mowry testify about this anyway in all the different hearings, right? Like that remember we heard reference like that he got the wording of what to ask for from Nick Balance, right? I'm remembering that, and that's literally what this is, because Mowry's like, how do I ask for it, right? Mowry requested verbiage via email from SA Balance, and then SA Balance says Nelos became location database of record. So list that and timing advance since both are applicable with them now. And this is on November 15th. In reviewing this email, there's no doubt that the email is in reference to AT&T, obviously. Detective Mowry then forwarded SA Balance's email to prosecutor Ashley Jennings. Detective Mowry was informing Jennings of the availability of AT&T TA reports and requesting it be added to the warrant. In reviewing the AT&T search warrants that were produced over the next few days after this email chain, all of them contain specific verbiage requesting AT&T TA reports, just as recommended by SA Balance. So do you see what I mean when I was just saying there about how this is clear to me that Jenny, like the tone of this is like Jennings is the one who did this wrong. Purposely, right? Like, in other words, because Mowry and Balance, they forwarded the shit, right? Mowry informed her of the availability, requested it be added to the warrant. And then when they looked at the warrants that were produced, all of them contain specific verbiage requesting the AT&T time advance reports, just as recommended by SA Balance. While the above reference email chain is clear as to the existence, availability, knowledge of the state regarding the AT&T, this is one of those huge mess ups where they have typos and whatever, so it's an incomplete sentence. Anyway, what they're saying here is in July of 2024, Mr. Kohberger received from the state the reports for 2022. So they're saying he got them in July of 2024, even though they clearly were discussing them. They knew they existed, but these were not for his phone. So they were for the other thing, the other phones. And then Mr. Kohberger is aware and will provide testimony in support that the AT&T timing reports currently in the state's possession were not provided to the state by the GDLC. Right. They were produced through that another compliance unit through the FBI's close relationship. So what this is like, basically, right, is like, this is how they got the records for the other people. So what they're saying is like that the way that these records were produced to the state was the same way they got these records for the other people, where they got them earlier, right? And you can see why. So this is where the whole thing about disclosure matters, because it's like basically like the state had them, but they didn't disclose them and turn them over. And then when they tried to explain why, they're like, oh, well, because we had to go through the GL. And by the way, they get it wrong here, as there's so many typos. It's GLDC. We had to go through GLDC, and then that, you know, it da da da. But then it's like, no, that's not it. That's not it. Right. Throughout the discovery process, the state has provided different explanations about TA report availability, but always claiming it was not in their possession. The search warrant for Mr. Kohberger's phone data contains identical verbiage as was used. This is important here. Requesting the TA reports that's for the other phones. The same process of serving the warrant was followed. Provided to Nick Balance, who then provided to AT&T. The exact same process, which resulted in TA records being produced in November, was repeated in December. Mr. Kohberger has sought the timing advance records related to his own phone and has litigated the issue. During the course of litigation, the lead detective testified he had seen them. The testimony. Which testimony? Or hopefully, yeah. So I mean, it's good to. it was good to review this anyway, right? Because there's just a lot of stuff. But you know, it is interesting because, like, I mean, this part here. So, like, again, just back to like the heart of their argument here, right? So it's like the state's motion informs the court that timing advance records were not produced by AT&T Global, the GLDC, until May of 2023. Mr. Kohberger agrees with that claim. However, that is only partial information. The state is misleading the court in its motion by what it leaves out. What the state is not saying is that the timing advance records existed at AT&T in November and December, and that the state knew it was true, right? And they had it from other people. And then they, right here, yeah. The state attempting it, and this is the part I read earlier, yeah. So it's a failure to disclose. So it looks, I mean, it's clear they have it now, but they didn't have it initially. But where was the part that they said about the litigation? Hold on, I'm just trying to make sure. Right, he has sought records to his own phone and litigated the issue. And then, right, there's the part about the testimony. Okay, yes. During the course of litigation, the lead detective testified. Right. Yes. Okay. Yep. So, okay, hopefully everybody's on the same page. Okay, so now, where was this one? This is where we were. Okay. So then the state's reply. Okay. Right. The carriers do not retain this data indefinitely. That's where we were. Excellent. Okay. Regarding AT&T, before June 23rd, 2023, AT&T retained time advance records for 7 days. These records were not routinely provided in response to legal demand prior to June 2023. After June 2023, AT&T started providing these records pursuant to legal demand and then retaining timing advance records for 13 months. In this case, the homicides occurred on November 13th. Bryan Kohberger was identified as a suspect on December 19th. The search warrants were executed on December 23rd. At this point, time advance records were not available for Bryan Bryan Kohberger's phone to cover the relevant time period, November 13th, 2022. Despite defendant's repeated assertions, the fact of the matter is that AT&T did not provide time advance records to law enforcement for Bryan Kohberger's phone. The state is attaching affidavits from AT&T. Oh yeah, I think we did read that part. Based on the above statements or inferences by defense counsel or their witnesses that there is additional evidence that could have been provided or was not provided, it is simply not correct and should not be allowed. Then they cite the rule. But now I wonder what else they have attached here, because, oh, okay. And then here's the search warrant. Okay. I wonder if there's anything new in this. Okay, and a lot of this we've already gone through. Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. So next up. Let's see. There's so many. Let's do close to these tabs. Oh my God, I have so many tabs. So this is the reply to the state's response to defendant's motion, eliminate the conditions as aggravator. The state has conceded it agrees. Oh my God, y'all, it agrees. The state has conceded it agrees with Mr. Kohberger's request in his motion to prevent the state from using his diagnosis and conditions thereof as aggravators in support of death should the case reach that stage. Mr. Kohberger's request finds basis in the case law cited in his motion in limine. Oh my God. The state's cited case law also supports his motion that his diagnosis and conditions of autism not be used as aggravating factors. Mr. Kohberger has moved for, and it is unrefuted, that the state is not in support of aggravation. That the state not used in support of aggravation is diagnosis and characteristics of autism. The court should grant the motion as requested. Holy shit. Holy shit. Holy shit. Wow. Wow. Now, what's interesting, I will say, again, just thinking back in the, what filing was it? Because initially, right, the defense made it seem like they were only going to bring the autism in. Oh, okay. I know where it was. Yeah, initially it seemed like they were only going to bring it in at the, penalty phase that it gets there. And then there was another filing where it was like, oh, wait, no, they want to use it earlier. So let me. Okay, this is the one. This is the one I want. Okay, so in other words, what we just read, right? This is them saying we're not going to use it as an aggravator, right? So that's in terms of, remember, because there's like different sets of motions regarding the autism, right? So really, the first batch was like the one where it's like, aggravators. So that's the sentencing or penalty phase, right? If it gets there. And so they're like, yeah, that's fine. The court should grant it. But then there was subsequent filings about using it at trial. And then that's where it also seems to be kind of hinted at potentially that they're wanting the public to see that he might take the stand. There was some definite indicators of that, of how they talked about how the jury needs to know from the onset so that they don't judge the way he sits and stares, or they don't judge his mannerisms. I'm paraphrasing, right? But also because of the fact that they mentioned his speech pattern and other things like that, there were certain things in there that I was like, oh, wow, like that would only be relevant if he testifies. Anywho, so I just wanted to summarize that because it can get confusing with all the different motions. There's so many, but then there's also different sets that deal with autism in different ways. So, so the one I just read again was dealing with the penalty phase and an aggravator, and they're like, yeah, you should court should grant the motion. So now this is the one that is in response to wanting it to come in at trial. And not, again, it's not as a defense or anything. It's just they're saying the jury needs to understand. And the other thing too that was interesting. Remember, there was the part about like the fact that he was wearing gloves and the fact that there was a number of other things that were very interesting because they said the OCD also had a thing. It was very, very interesting, you know. So anyway, I'm just reflecting on that document now, and now we're getting to the response to that. So, right, and that's correct. Yep, because of the thing with the hands and whatnot. Yeah, they do. That was another thing. Yeah, I forget what they called that, but yeah, that was another thing that came up in that document. What I will say, Mikey, so Mikey says, I feel a certain way about this. You don't, I mean, you don't have to share your thoughts, but I welcome your thoughts. I would love to know your thoughts. And for mitigation, yeah. And, you know, to that end also, I've covered all of the death penalty motions in this case, but also I happen to be covering multiple death penalty cases. And I go through all the death penalty motions. And so not everybody does. So I'm really always up for discussion about that. And how that process works, you know, specific to Idaho. And also for the autism and stuff, you know, like I have a lot of experience with autistic students and whatnot. And anyway, so I'm, you know, I don't think you need to worry about anybody being a troll because I'm seeing stuff about trolls. Okay. That's just how they're saying. Okay. On her videos. Okay. Yeah. You don't have to worry. It's a safe place here to share y'all's thoughts. Right. So thank you. Need some Z's. Also welcome. Right. The developmental coordination disorder. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, officials echoing. You can disagree here. It's safe, of course. It's safe and respectful. Yep. So again, you don't have to, but if you know, I love engaging in discussion of things. Like I think that's I was gonna say the spice of life, but that's like literally the lamest thing to ever say. So like, just pretend I didn't say that. Ew. That is so dumb. So yeah. I need to get some chapstick. Give me just a second, guys. My lips are so chapped. Well, that explains it. It's like really low humidity and it got colder again. Jesus Christ, like 20% humidity inside. That's crazy. No wonder my lips were so chapped. Okay, I see what you're saying. No, a lot of people on the spectrum are geniuses. I mean, like I said, I've had several violin students who are, I mean, currently even that are on varying degrees on the spectrum, and it is a spectrum because there's some. I mean, I've had students in the past that are like actually really physically handicapped, and like they're actually behind, like in school, and they like are, you know. But then I have others that are like savants, like you know. So it really does vary, but it is not uncommon for people on the spectrum to be really, really smart. You know, EDB calls it neurospicy. You know what I mean? Right. The mannerisms. Yeah. The mannerisms. Yeah. Cause that's definitely, I think that for people who are, I mean, for everybody that I've interacted with that are on the spectrum, regardless of where they are on the spectrum, I think that I think you can notice, no, I don't mean it in a bad way. You can see how in a trial, right? They can't assume the jury knows things, right? They can't assume that the jury's going to be familiar with the behaviors of people who are neurospicy, right? They can't assume that. So things that, just in some spaces, right? People are used to it, and it's not anything negative or anything. It doesn't, you know what I mean? It's neither here nor there. But if you think about a jury, right, and that they're maybe not so exposed to it or whatever, you have to assume that they don't know. And then if somebody just doesn't sit the way, but you know what? So it's just, the thing is this, right? Like in every single case, you know that it's just, no matter what this defendant sits and does, even if they don't testify, if they just sit, it's like, if they're crying, they're fake crying. If they're not crying, they're cold-blooded killers. And it's just, with every case, that's what people. When I say the people, I'm talking about like mainstream media or whatever, the public at large, right? In other words, everything they do is going to be wrong, right? But my point being that they're always judging what the person's doing as they sit there. So if you have somebody who has some different types of behaviors, but especially when it comes to talking, because they mentioned that, right? It sounds like they really want to bring it up in jury selection. And I get it. And I do think that it's important. But it has nothing to do with his culpability at all. It's just so that they don't judge his behavior and mannerisms right away and misinterpret them. That's the first thing, right? Furthermore, they have other things they might want to bring in terms of like, would he even be able to hold the knife? That's like the thing that needs some Z's. Oh, fuck, what was it? This one, the coordination, the developmental coordination disorder. But then also, like, if there's like things about wearing gloves or sorting the trash, like then there's like the OCD, and he doesn't like germs and stuff, right? So there's different levels of it that different things may or may not come in, or they might be admissible at certain times. But I do agree 100% that, like, I think just in general, in terms of like the mannerisms, right? The point being, that's not to explain any of the things, right? Things like the gloves or things like sorting up the trash or holding a knife, that's all shit that's gonna have to wait until the evidence comes in at trial, right? But just in terms of like somebody just sitting there and not judging their behaviors, I think that is totally fucking relevant and should come in as soon as possible. And that's just like, I don't know, that just makes sense to me, right? Because that's not looking to explain anything that's going to come in at trial. It's nothing to do with the facts of the case. I don't think I quite understand, Mikey. So are you saying that you have a different interpretation of it depending on if he's found guilty or not? I'm just trying to figure out. Waiting for testing. You're not off the path. You're not off the path at all. We're literally talking about this coming in at trial and its admissibility. I'm just curious. So are you saying, I just want to make sure, are you saying that like you would have a different thought about it depending on if he's found guilty or not? Or were you with Rat Twiz? Can you clarify that though, or elaborate? Are you saying if he's found guilty, then it coming in the penalty phase won't make a difference? Is that what you're saying? That might be what you're saying. That if he's found guilty and then them presenting this as mitigating evidence, it won't make a difference. I think that might be what you're saying. And I would agree. I think the more important thing here is getting it out. Like I said, like honestly, getting it out in front of the jury at jury selection so they don't start judging him. That would be my thing. Like I said, I think that is really important. Okay, yeah. See, one of those things for being a teacher, sometimes you can kind of figure things out. That's funny. Okay, good. I'm glad that we're on the same page and I'm understanding your question. Yeah. No, I agree. I totally agree that if he's found guilty, I don't think that's going to change it for the jury. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember. So the filing from the defense there, they really were like, most of their filing was trying to say that they don't want the state to use it as an aggravator, right? Conditions as aggravator. So like, see now, hold on. Let me just double check because I don't want to, for the narrative that in the media, right? Like that, oh, they're going to try to get him off of the death penalty because of autism. The thing is like, that's not accurate to what was in the filing. So I just want to make sure that I'm okay. Because again, there's so many different motions. There's like the motions to strike the death penalty because of it. But okay, hold on. Okay. So here's the initial filing, conditions as aggravator. Because again, I'm thinking here, right here, it is inappropriate for the prosecution to wrap mitigating evidence into an aggravator. So again, so I really think that their whole thing with the autism for the penalty phase is like they did not want the state to try to use it as an aggravating factor, as in he would be more likely to commit, or whatever. He's more dangerous, whatever the fuck they're going to do. Like he's more dangerous or whatever the case may be. Because of the fact that it could be categorized as a mental illness, right? But again, it is very different than other mental illnesses, but that's the whole thing. So like, I think here's what I'm saying. I think that a lot of people may have misinterpreted this. Like when it talks about this, the court has defined mitigating factors to be any evidence that might serve as a basis for a sentence. I don't know that that means that they're saying they're going to use it as they're going to try to use it as a mitigating factor. They may or may not. But regardless, in order to preclude the state from using it as an aggravator, they have to make the point that it's not an aggravator, it's a mitigator, even if they don't intend to use it that way. Does that make sense? So in other words, they're just citing the case law. They're just citing the case law. And by the way, shout out to North Carolina case law here. They're just citing the case law to say that it's a mitigating factor and not an aggravating factor, so that the state can't use it as an aggravating factor. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they will use it as mitigation. So I just want to put that out there so that's clear, right? That they may not, they don't just, people, I understand how people could misinterpret this. I do, especially mainstream media or whatever. But yeah, and there's a lot of case law here. So they're saying if it comes in at all, it should be considered only as mitigation. I agree, but it doesn't mean this is not that saying they're going to even do that. So right here, what are they asking for? Right here, what are they asking for? Mr. Kohberger respectfully requests the court prevent the state from using his diagnosis of autism or any characteristic thereof as an aggravator. If it's sentencing, that's it. That's what they're asking for. They're not, notice, they're not asking to use it. Let me just make that abundantly clear. What they're asking the court, request the court, they're not asking the court for the defense, to be able to use it as a mitigator or to do anything with it. They're just asking the court to prevent the state from using it as an aggravator. Does that make sense? Very, 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 very different. So that is an important distinction. So I'm really glad you brought all this up, Mikey, so that we can clarify this. And then let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. Well, they do have experts, official. They do have experts. Yeah, that's in these filings. They have experts on that. Yeah. We've covered that as well. Yep. Can't use it against him. Yep, that's it. That's a great way to summarize it right there. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Yes. Now, in the trial phase, now the defense wants to bring it in the trial phase, right? That was the news, because this is the first thing we got in terms of the order they came out. This was the first thing. And then we got subsequent filings from the defense. The defense wants to bring it in the trial phase. And like, maybe it's worth just pulling this up and just taking another quick look, because, there's a lot of things here. And like, again, the narrative, and even if people have good, it's just easy to not, it's just good to review it. Let's just pull this up real quick and just do a quick little review of this. So this is the God, there's so many filings. I believe it's this one. I think so, because it's a 33-page. Okay. Yes. So, right. So we're just going to review little snippets of this. Okay. The minute that jury selection begins, jurors will begin to study and analyze his physical presence. They will watch his every move and pass judgment on him. Yes, they will. They will. Mr. Kohberger must be able to present testimony to the jury as certain physical disorders. It will assist the trier of fact to his physical presentation, including nonverbal reactions in the courtroom. And they have this Dr. Jeffrey Limine with his, speaking of the expert, to your point there, official, right? They've got several experts. This is one of them. Look, so then here we go. Mr. Kohberger in no way suggests that expert testimony related to his ASD, OCD, and DCD are for the purpose of showing that he does not know right from wrong. First and foremost, okay? He has at all times and continues to assert his actual innocence in this case. The state correctly notes in its motion, and then there's the disclosure here, right? There, it's not a mental health defense, right? So they're not saying it is. To assist the trier of fact, and then here's the ASD. Again, we covered this, we read this entire thing, right, on another live stream, and so that's why I'm not reading it all again, but we're just doing a summary. Right, ASD affects how people interact with others, learn, behave, and there's a lot of overlap, right, with ASD and OCD. Right here. Here we go. As a physical condition, ASD may not be as noticeable as some physical conditions like a missing arm. I think this is a really good point right here. I'm going to read it again. As a physical condition, ASD may not be as noticeable as some physical conditions like a missing arm. If Mr. Kohberger had the physical disability of missing an arm, the jury would not require explanation about how such a physical condition may impact the case. Yes, true. ASD is visible in some ways that will be apparent to a jury, as in they'll be able to see differences, but requires explanation. Without explanation, the way that the public perceives the behaviors and mannerisms of someone with ASD is not always favorable and may be prejudicial. So that it'd be easy to misinterpret it. And then they describe it again. We've gone over all this: the piercing stare, stiff body posture, all this stuff, right? And then they get into the dexterity problems, right? And they go through all these different behaviors that people have. And then they go through the OCD, and then the DCD. And then this one is interesting, right? So he's the physical impairments. Now this is the one, right? This one, the DCD, this is the one that would come in. If it comes in, it would be much later in trial, because this is really to directly rebut, like, he couldn't have done it. He couldn't have, for example, my take on this is like, he couldn't have held a knife, for example, right? That's like, so this is different. This is something that would not come out. If it comes in, it's not going to come in. Like, I think that in terms of the part about the jury judging the way he sits there and stare, like shit like that, like I said, that to me, that's relevant from the get-go to me, that, like from jury selection or whatever. So, and actually they do make a distinction there somewhere about how they know things won't come in at the same time. Maybe it's in a different filing, but anyway, so that's the summary there. Yeah, Mikey, let us know if you want a custom command. I haven't even said that tonight. Yeah, and anyone else who doesn't have one who wants one, because we love doing our custom commands for everybody. Okay, I'm just seeing what you guys saying in the chat. Do. So I'm curious, Annie's saying, that's an interesting take. So she's saying many people have disabilities, but appointing them as to garner sympathy. I see what you're saying. I do see what you're saying. And this is why, like I said, I think there's going to be a distinction. The way they're going to have to go through this, because the list of all the different like symptoms, if you will, or whatever, of those different things, there's so much. And like, basically, that's why, kind of like with the hearsay text, right? It's like, it's going to be the type of thing where it's going to be assessed differently. What can come in and when, like I've been saying. And so, you know, the reason I'm mentioning that is because I think that makes a difference, right? But the other thing is this, right? Even if that is how someone's attempting to use it, right, to garner sympathy, I don't know that that even would be successful. Like if the jury thinks that somebody's did it, like guilty, like there's not, like in other words, you're not going to have jury nullification, for example, right? You're not going to have that. If the state I'm for any case, right? For any case, if the state proves their case in chief, right? And then any type of disability doesn't any type, right, is pointed out, you know, let's just say that the defense hopes to garner sympathy, right? But let's just say that that's the case, but the state proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't think you're going to have jury nullification. Like, I don't think it's going to make a difference. I think they'll still find the person guilty. You know what I mean? Now where sympathy could come in, right, if there's a penalty phase, right? Potentially. But that's why I think it's interesting that that doesn't seem to really be, at least at this juncture, like I said, that may or may not be where they're going with it. You know what I mean? The unredacted PCA. Is that one of the new filings, Kane? Yeah, custom command. I'm sure I'm just catching up. I'm sure somebody's already answered that probably. Okay, maybe not. So the custom command, yeah. So like, for example, Twiz, like, because we've got all these different commands, right? But then we have also custom commands, like for all of our school friends that want one, where we do their command and then it does a thing. Right. Not much. I mean, that's why I was asking you. Yeah, not much in the PCA is redacted. Yeah, that's true. James was here earlier. Yeah. So what I was going to say is like, I just don't know that the garnering of sympathy in the guilt phase, right? I just don't know that that's going to can make a difference, right? So for me, what I was going to say though is for me, because the fact that if the state proves their case, okay, I'm talking about for any case, I'm talking about in the guilt phase, okay, if it's a death penalty case, if the state proves their case, well, and sometimes even when they don't, right, guys, sometimes even when they don't, juries are likely to convict, right? So even if they don't, so if you take a situation where the state does prove their case, right, there's no way, like barring jury nullification, which we know is just so fucking rare, right? Juries are going to convict. Again, sometimes even if the state doesn't prove their case, but if they've proven their case, basically, like what I'm saying is, I don't think there's really anything a defense team can do to get it not guilty, right? And that would include sympathy. Why am I mentioning that? Because in terms of what I think maybe should come in for the guilt phase, right? For this, if you consider that, and that you consider that there's no way if the state proves their case that they're gonna be like, well, yeah, he definitely murdered 4 kids. You know, this is hypothetical, right? But like, oh, but you know, because we feel sorry for him because of autism. I'm paraphrasing, right? In terms of what some people might say. Like, oh, well, we feel bad for him, so we're going to go not guilty. It's not going to happen. That is not going to happen, right? So when you consider that it's not going to be prejudicial, like there's no way it's going to be prejudicial for the state, right? The state might argue that, but that's not going to be how it works, because it's just not how it works. Juries aren't like that. When you consider that, and then you consider the interest of justice, and you consider that, like in other words, this, if something to maybe explain certain behaviors and mannerisms, even just thinking about like the minimum of what could come in, right? Or even just bringing it up at jury selection. They don't even have to get into a diagnosis. It could just be like, are you familiar with this? And do you know that people can sit a different way and stare at whatever, you know what I mean? Even just something like that, right? If the minimum of something like that comes in, you know, at the beginning, like jury selection, there is no harm it's going to do for the state, right? It's not going to do anything. There's not going to be any harm done to the state. However, it not coming in could do harm to the defendant. And that is why I'm saying I think it's fair, because it's all about the defendant's rights. And we know that juries are just so likely to convict, right? So in other words, what's the harm? Like, in other words, right? Like, that's, if you were to summarize it, like what's the harm? Nothing bad will happen. Nothing bad will happen. They're not going to go not guilty because they feel sorry for him, for anybody. I mean, when not, you know, does that make sense? So like, because of that, in the interest of justice, right, it is more important to then preserve, you know, the only person who could be prejudiced here is the defendant. That's my point. Because the state, it's not going to affect the state. The only person who can be prejudiced is the defendant, negatively, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, the trial is going to be 3 months, they're thinking. Well, of course, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Of course they can. Yeah, of course they can. Yeah, someone can have learning disabilities and still be capable of the crime. Yeah. Now, if they're physically incapable, right, that's a whole different thing. But that's going to be a battle of the experts if that comes in with the DCD. Hi, Meg. Well, and the people are just misinformed, because literally, in the very first paragraph of this defense filing, am I on the same one? Yeah, literally. Look, guys. Mr. Kohberger in no way suggests that the expert testimony related to ASD, OCD, or DCD are for the purpose of showing that he does not know right from wrong. So yeah, I mean, they're really trying, according to the filing, right? Like they're wanting to bring it into A, to explain his mannerisms, right? B, and then this is the ones where it's going to be trickier, right? B, to potentially explain other things like that might come out with the state's case that look sus, right? Sorting of the trash, wearing whatever the fuck, right? They gave a bunch of examples, right? And then the ability to hold a knife. Those are all in different categories than just like the first bucket. Oh God, I just said bucket. But the first thing, right, which is like mannerisms. You know what I mean? And the other thing is like I just don't think juries just sit there and judge. I don't believe in judging. Like I don't think people should be judging people anyway. So that includes juries staring at a defendant and judging them, So anyway, it'd be great if they just didn't do it, and then it wouldn't even be an issue. Welcome back, Rolo. Yeah. Yeah. Again, because it's not, there's no harm, nothing, there's no harm that will be done for it to come in. There's no harm will be done to the state. If the state can't prove their case, they can't prove their case. If they can, they can. And it's not going to make a difference. The only harm that can be done is prejudice to the defendant, right? So, okay. So now back to where we were here. All right. So now this is the state's reply, right? So now we're all caught up. We've done a little good review there. Okay. Interesting. The defendant in his response to the state's motion to eliminate has clarified that he apparently has at least two separate purposes for the proposed evidence: to explain how the defendant appears before a jury and to rebut what the defendant anticipates may be evidence from the state. Y'all, hold on. Before I keep reading that, literally, what did I just say? Literally, what was I just saying? What was I saying? Remember the thing about the buckets? And I just laughed at myself for it. Guys, remember about the buckets? And I was like, there's like the things, like, does anybody remember what I just said? Because like, this is so funny. This is so funny. Not those buckets, the bucket I just said. The first bucket, the bucket of like the mannerisms, right? That maybe, I think that should maybe come up even starting at jury selection, versus the bucket of the OCD, which could explain, again, the example, sorting of the trash, the glove, whatever the case is. And then the other bucket being the DCD, which is like, couldn't possibly hold a knife or whatever, right? Those are just the examples I'm giving of potentially how it could come up. And I was like, those are the later buckets. Those are going to be harder to come in. Those are going to be completely different. The first one is in a separate category, and then the other ones are different. Anyway, well, this is what's so funny. At least two separate purposes for the proposed evidence: to explain how the defendant appears before a jury, that's bucket one, and to rebut what the defendant anticipates may be evidence from the state regarding suspicious, unusual, or other odd physical and social behavior. Literally what I just said. And I think the distinction is important because you know what? If the defense doesn't make, and they're going to have to go, okay, they're going to have to really make it clear with their experts where the lines are. And here's the thing: if they don't do that, it's all going to be kept out, right? They're going to have to be really clear about what they think should come in and when and how and everything. Otherwise, it's just all going to be kept out. And that's why I'm even making those distinctions. That's why I think it's important. Because I think if they don't make those distinctions, they're not going to even get to bucket one. Okay. And even that is still a long shot, right? But I'm saying to me, in the interest of justice, I think it's fair. The defendant has now also included a declaration by Dr. Jeffrey Limine. Yes, this is the first the state has heard of him. Okay, great. So now they're like, yeah, you didn't, whatever, dude. Okay. He was not included in the defendant's guilt phase expert disclosures, nor does he appear to offer anything in rebuttal to proffered expert disclosures from the state. First, addressing the issue of the defendant's behaviors and appearances they may be perceived by the jury. The defense offers no authority, statutory or otherwise, to allow them to present evidence. That's true. They did not present any case law or statute. Yeah, how he may behave. That's true. The state is unaware of any such authority. While Idaho Code 18207 does allow for admission of certain mental condition evidence, not even that statute contemplates the defendant offering evidence of the defendant's behaviors and appearance, much less offering evidence before even the state's case in chief begins. Like, literally, this is so funny. This is like what I'm saying, right? Prior to jury selection. Like, to me, I'm like, I think that's fair, but this is true. They didn't have anything back up. I mean, that's how it is, right? Sometimes what we think maybe should be the law isn't the law or isn't there. We haven't gotten there yet, right? So all of this is true. I agree that I feel like it should come in, not all of it, right? I'm saying certain things need to be brought up at jury selection. I think that's fair. But yes, it's true that there is no statute or case law to support that. So that sucks for the defense. Not only would this type of evidence be completely irrelevant and immaterial to the legal and factual issues in this case, whether the defendant committed 4 murders and burglary, it would more likely confuse the issues, mislead the jury, and play to the jury's sympathies. These purposes are prohibited by the rules. The state notes that Idaho, that's the jury instructions. Lists the evidence a jury is allowed to consider: sworn testimony of witnesses, exhibits which have been admitted into evidence, and then facts to which I was literally going to say stipulations. Facts to which the parties have stipulated. The defendant's demeanor and appearance are not included. Yeah, but dude, no. Prepare for the goat. Goat warning. Goat warning. You've got to be kidding me. State. How insulting is this for everybody that they are going to try to act like they don't think the jury is judging the defendant? Come on. I will add, if the defendant takes the stand, they are told literally something completely different, right? Which is, you get to judge their credibility just like everyone else. And that includes their demeanor on the stand. So literally, they're told the opposite if the defendant takes the stand. But regardless, even if they don't take the stand, don't even pretend state like, dude, that's just disgusting. Sorry, it was an emergency goat situation. As stated above, the state is unaware of any authority that would allow the defendant to present evidence purportedly explaining how he may appear or behave in front of the jury. There is, however, a body of law regarding prosecutorial misconduct holding that a defendant's courtroom behavior off the witness stand was legally irrelevant to the question of his guilt of the crime charged. This analysis further supports the conclusion that a defendant's appearance or behavior in front of a jury, well, also, okay, sorry. Why the fuck are they citing case law from a district court level, federal court, district court from 1987? Okay, basically delete that part. That's not me. That's embarrassing. They should not have even included this. That's embarrassing. In other words, there is not case law to support this proposition. Right here. That's the best they got. That's a joke. Oh, and look at that. Keep reading, right? Remember the part about testifying I was just saying? This analysis further supports the conclusion that the defendant's appearance or behavior in front of a jury, at least when he is not testifying, is irrelevant, not evidence. Now, what was I saying a few minutes ago, guys, right? That there's little bits of little nuggets in these where I'm like, I've been getting this feeling like he might be testifying. And it's interesting because this does come up. Now, here's the thing. If the defense in this case already knows, they've already talked about it, and they think he might testify, you can see how it's even more important that the jury is aware of any mannerisms and whatnot as early as possible. And here's why. Because if it has to wait, let's just say that evidence waits, like that's not presented to the jury until right before he testifies. Or let's just say that the jury doesn't learn about autism or anything like that, right? Until the defendant's case in chief. At that point, remember, it's entirely possible that the jury's already basically convicted them in their minds. And remember, they want to make sure, and this is true for any trial, if the defendant's going to take the stand, you want to make sure that you have as much as possible given them a chance to still be considered by at least one juror not guilty when that happens, right? So, in other words, if they've already convicted him from the get-go, right, and if any of that is based on why he sits there during the case in chief, the state's case in chief, then him taking the stand is going to be not good, right? So, like part of what I remember thinking this before as well, that a lot of what I read in that defense filing, I thought is especially relevant if he takes a stand. And if he doesn't take the stand, some of it wouldn't really be as relevant. So it's interesting that, and I mentioned it already tonight, and then here's the state mentioning it as well. Because again, if he's testifying, they're told, all right, you get to judge everything just like everybody else. The defendant cites to State v. Samuel, which is, oh, look, so the state has, the defendant has better case law here. This is an Idaho Supreme Court case from 2019. So that wins over their little dumb federal district court from 1987. That's ridiculous. However, State v. Samuel dealt with the evidence of mental condition as it related to whether the defendant knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently waived his Miranda rights in speaking with law enforcement. When the defendant opposed, so what you have to do, okay, you're never going to, if you've got a situation where there's not case law that's exactly on point, right? You got to find your job, right? Both parties, you're going to try to find the thing that is the closest, right? What is the closest? What is the next best thing? And then the other side's going to go through and be like, oh, here's why that's not very good. You know what I mean? However, State v. Sam, I already read that part. Sorry. Okay. When the defendant opposed the state's request for an independent mental evaluation, the defendant tried to argue that Idaho Code 18-2007 or whatever, 207, was limited to mental conditions as they relate to elements of the charged offense. The Idaho Supreme Court held otherwise. What is most important is Samuel does not stand for the proposition that expert or any other testimony regarding how a defendant may appear in front of a jury is admissible. The defendant's appearance and behaviors in front of a jury are not material or relevant. They are if he testifies, and you can't wait until he testifies to address that issue. That's the fucking point. That's the fucking point. Who's Ann? Oh, Ann Taylor. Okay. If you're on my Ann Taylor, I guarantee you she ignores anything YouTube send. That's pointless. Why would anyone? Are people sending her stuff? Don't do that. I'm not that you guys are, but no. Who's whipping things out? Somebody's whipping something out. That's what she said. Oh, Kat Randall was asking what's screaming. That was the goat. I saw Heather answer that question anyway. What did I also say? So are you talking about whipping things out or? That's funny. If a hoe ain't hoeing, she don't be knowing. That's really funny. Oh. No. What I said was I initially thought that in my head, and then I recorrected myself because if he'd whipped it out, that would have been that he would have been given a citation. That's illegal. You can't be whipping it out in public. he would have been given a citation. So that's why I'm still thinking it's something more. My thought is probably gay porn. That's what I'm thinking. Gay porn. I didn't realize what you guys were talking about. That's what. Yeah, I'm still going with, because it's something that is not illegal, something that would not necessitate a citation, but something that is considered, quote, wrongful behavior. That's what it literally says in the wrongful behavior, but it's not illegal. It's not connected to the crime, and he was not given a citation. And if he'd whipped it out, that he would have been given a citation. And it does seem like it's something in the passenger seat. Maybe it's Twiz. That's a good thought, Heather. Yeah, initially, if whipping it out was one of the things in my realm of possibility, and I was like, no, because that's illegal. So he would have, kind of rule that out. It's a kink thing. It's a kink thing, Kane. I'm with you on that 100%. Definitely. It's a kink thing. Yep. And at some point we were thinking about drugs, but Idaho is not legal marijuana is not legal in Idaho. So if it had been marijuana, he would have been given a citation. So it's something that, and it was very clear in the defense, it's not like it was something illegal, but they just let him off the hook. Whatever it was, they said point blank, it was not illegal, right? It was not illegal, wasn't a criminal thing, and he was not given a citation because it wasn't illegal. But it's wrongful behavior. The wrongful behavior for me is like what really got me thinking. I'm like, and it's something that's in the video, right? So the jury's going to judge him. That's what it sounds like to me. And it's not connected to the crime. Yeah, if he stopped to pee. That's a good point, because, that's like a whole thing, right? Binoculars or a K-bar connected to the crime. The defense said it. The defense said it has nothing to do with any of the crimes as charged. They made that abundantly clear, because that's why they're saying this shouldn't come in. Anything like in this, like, in other words, it's something that it sounds to me like it's something that no matter in the wildest stretch of your imagination, you could not connect it to the crime. And the reason I'm saying that is because obviously binoculars, a K-bar, you don't have to work that hard to think that the state could connect that to the crime, right? It's not related. It's not connected. Oh my God, Heather. Heather! Yeah, we talked about the shower curtain too, because somebody thought maybe it was a stack of shower curtains. And I was like, no. No. For so many reasons. First of all, it doesn't make any sense, right? Because for anyone who wants to be like, oh, because that whole thing about getting rid of the shower curtain, wherever that came from, I have no idea. But like that whole thing. Well, this traffic stop was before the homicides, right? So if the thought is, oh, he got rid of the shower curtain after the homicides, right? Then none of it makes any fucking sense, right? It's like, to say that he had this way before was getting a new shower curtain, that would, are you trying to allege that he was killing people months before? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. The other thing is, again, because there is a photo of him with his shower and there's no curtain, a purchase of a shower curtain could still be connected in the state's view to the crime, right? Whatever this is not connected, not illegal. It's wrongful behavior, that type of thing. Shout out to Angel D. I think you've been here before. Welcome back. Oh, maybe not. Maybe you're new. If you're new, welcome. Who's Trey? Yeah, and again, I think the headphones, like we talked about it earlier, actually, but the headphones I think are really noteworthy. Thank you so much again for gifting another membership, Mikey. Awesome. And the other thing, for anyone who is gifted a membership, we had so much fun earlier tonight. We played Never Have I Ever. So there's definitely going to be probably some carryover from that for those of you guys who were here in the chat. It was super fucking fun. And we're going to do it again. So, but the next members only live stream will be, I'll just mention it again while I have the chance here. The next members only live stream will be the members only trivia night. And that's the one where you guys get a handicap in a good way, where you get to pick your own category that you think you're expert at. And so y'all let me know. Make sure you've all, some of you guys have already submitted it, but if you haven't submitted it, get it in the Discord and let me know what you want your category to be. Because again, I'm going to have an even number of questions for everybody's categories. So everybody has an even advantage. It's going to be really funny. And we will do Never Have I Ever again at some other point too. Derp Durable. The prize would be, you get another blow up doll. How about that? Grow a girlfriend. You get an extra grow a girlfriend. Thank you, Happy Annie. Also gifted a membership. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Welcome back, Tanel. It's funny. I don't know what happened to Twiz. Twiz is, we haven't heard from him in a second. Are you talking about for a custom command official? If you're talking about for the members only live stream, the trivia, right? So like, for example, so when we did the first one, we did law trivia, right? And people were making jokes in the chat like, oh, if this was fill in the blank, I would be winning, right? Like, for example, Kat Randall is here right now. Kat Randall said trees. If this was trees, he's like, I'd be killing it, right? Just as an example, like for Kit Smits or for me, it'd be classical music, right? Other things. So everybody's got their thing that they know the most about, or they feel like they know the most about, right? And so that's where we got the idea to do another trivia night where every person, every member submits their category that they want. I mean, you don't have to, but you can, And so I've been compiling a list. I've got a list in the Discord. I also have some written down. I've got written down right here. I'm looking at classic cars, 90s music, Van Halen, musical theater, but then there's a bunch that have been submitted in the Discord. And so everybody gets to pick one category. And then what I'm going to do is an even number of questions for each category. But then I'm also going to throw in just like general trivia questions as well, if that makes sense. But the idea being that everybody should have an even advantage, if that makes sense. It's like everybody starts out plus 10. You know what I mean? You can't handle the trees. I'm so excited for anyone who Kat Randall's an arborist, which is amazing. It's going to be so fun. Some of you guys with your categories, I'm going to be learning a whole lot to come up with the questions and shit. It's going to be awesome. No, wait, that's not Twiz. I was confused because I saw the orange tea and it's Tanel. You guys have the same orange tea, you and Twiz. Yeah, because he turned his orange. It was brown, I think, before. So, and you know what's so funny? Because I've told, dude, I don't know what's going on. Twiz, because I told Twiz has an open invite to come on the show. And for some reason, he's not taking me up on it. Are you welcome here? What do you mean? Of course you are. What? Everybody's welcome here, except for Glenn, our troll. We have our one troll, Glenn, literally the only troll. Heather's listening. I'm sure she'll weigh in on that. But yeah, Glenn is our channel troll that we've had, just the one. And Everybody else is welcome. And there's Heather. She's quoting Glenn. That was Glenn's thing. He all said. That is so funny. You can't right. Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. You can't handle the trees. Well, see, in my mind, when I said that, I understood it in my mind that way, but I can't do that impression, so it didn't translate. Okay, so all right, so let's get back to this. So where are we here? Right. Okay. Yes, I was goading. Right. The defendant's appearance and behaviors in front of a jury are not material. Yeah. Okay. Either Idaho Code 18-207 applies and the evidence is limited to mental condition as it relates to a legal or factual issue, or it does not apply, in which event the evidence is irrelevant and not admissible. The defendant asserts that the second purpose of the defendant's proffer of the mental condition evidence is to rebut right. Yes, anticipated state's evidence about how the defendant interacts with others, his personal hygiene habits, and so forth. At the outset, the state currently does not have any intention of offering evidence during the guilt phase of defendant's pattern of odd behaviors, such as social miscues with coworkers, professors, students, and others, compulsive hand washing, etc. The state understands that were it to offer such evidence in rebuttal, the defendant would likely be entitled to offer evidence that those behaviors stemmed from his OCD and ASD conditions, as opposed to some nefarious purpose. Defendant argues he has a developmental coordination disorder. That means it was not possible for him to commit these crimes because he lacked the necessary speed and coordination. But that is not what his neuropsychological evaluation found. The expert who conducted the evaluation, Dr. Orr, listed developmental coordination disorder under the title Diagnoses for which Bryan met criteria in the past. Oh, boy. Ruh-roh. The defense left this out. Look, guys, Dr. Orr clearly explains that, quote, motor problems have not impacted his functioning significantly in many years. Well, that's a completely different situation, isn't it? You guys hear that? Blackwitter's here. Welcome. Love you, Blackwitter. I'm going to read that again. Dr. Orr listed developmental coordination disorder under the title Diagnoses for which Bryan met criteria in the past. Dr. Orr clearly explains that motor problems have not impacted his functioning significantly in many years. And there's a footnote. And that's true. He could have just grown used to the issues. But if that's the case, there's a big difference. Like, in other words, the thing is the defense did put in there something about not being physically capable of doing it, right? So if he's grown used to the issues, right, then he would have figured out physical workarounds, as people do, which would mean it, you know what I mean? Like that. So yeah, like, for example, if you've got some sort of issue with like grasping things, but you have grown used to it and you've figured out ways around it, when now you have another, then it's not, then you can't also say that you couldn't have done the thing, right? Curiously, defendant's other mental health expert, Dr. Ryan, includes developmental coordination disorder as a current condition, even though she defers to Dr. Orr's comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation, which found defendant only met criteria in the past. Dr. Ryan provides no explanation for her differing opinion. In fact, the phrase developmental coordination disorder appears only a single time in Dr. Ryan's report on the list of conditions. Dr. Ryan's discussion of defendant's problems with fine motor skills is limited to his educational history, and all her references were observations made than 2 decades ago. Okay, let me read that part. Dr. Ryan's discussion of the defendant's problems with fine motor skills is limited to his educational history, and all her references were to observations made more than 2 decades ago. So like as a middle schooler maybe or something. I 100% agree. Just because someone isn't treated for something that actually exists doesn't mean it isn't real. Totally agree. But also, if the thing is real and it exists and they aren't treated for it, but it's not currently affecting them, whether it's because they've gotten all better or whether it's because they've learned to live with it, you know, it's not true. To be able to say that it was, look, defendant argues he presently has a developmental coordination disorder. Okay, now maybe he has it, but he's learned to live with it. Okay, but that it was not possible for him to commit these crimes because he lacked the necessary speed and coordination. That's the part that is going to be problematic, right? Because that's the thing. Whether you've learned to live with it or whether you've gotten better, if it's not currently impacting you, right, then you can't also say that it would have been physically impossible, right? I mean, I have no idea. I've not delved all the way deep into it, and I'm not an expert. I mean, they've got experts. Now, one thing that's interesting, I'll note, is they have several different experts, but in their filing, they only included one. Like, I was expecting to hear from Dr. Orr in there, and then they didn't, and I thought that was interesting. Heather wants to delve. Fine. You guys, you know how I am, right? You all know how I am. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Cannot delve. Okay, guys, Google search. Starting there. I am not a medical expert. This is not my purview. We're gonna just do what we can. All right, we're delving. Also known as dyspraxia. Ooh, let's do this. Cleveland Clinic. Okay, scientific. I love Ron Swanson. I agree. Every defendant, dude, it's all about that justice, man. Defendant's rights, innocent until proven guilty. All right. So dyspraxia, right. Well, there's no cure. There you go, Heather. Occupational therapy can greatly help children. So what's interesting, and this has been pretty clear from it does seem like it's a childhood thing. So that's interesting. So it makes just like what we just read there, right? They said it was more than 20 years ago. So that's interesting. Let's just take a look. A chronic condition that begins in childhood that causes difficulties with motor skills and coordination can cause a wide range of issues. Coordination, buttons. Ooh, dyspraxia in adults. When it's not used in the context of childhood developmental coordination disorder, the term dyspraxia has a broader meaning. Healthcare providers may use it to describe movement difficulties that happen even from things like a stroke or brain injury. Okay, interesting. So in other words, developmental coordination disorder is really childhood developmental coordination disorder. And when you're an adult, then it goes into just the category of dyspraxia, which includes other things. Because essentially what they're saying is, and that's interesting. Huh. What is the difference between dyspraxia and apraxia? Okay. Apraxia is more severe. It means you lose the ability to do something even though you understand the command and have a willingness to perform the movement. Who does dyspraxia affect? Usually begins in childhood, can persist into adulthood, most commonly affects men than women. It's just very interesting because it really does focus on the kids, doesn't it? It affects approximately 6% of school-age children. older children. Let's see. I want more about the adults though. Okay, what causes it? They aren't sure. There are no medical tests that can definitively diagnose dyspraxia. Instead, your child's team of healthcare workers will ask detailed questions and then da-da-da. There's no cure. Okay, here we go. There's no cure for dyspraxia, but different types of therapy, such as occupational therapy and physical therapy, can help. Children and adults with dyspraxia improve their motor skills and coordination. As it affects everyone differently, your child will benefit from an individualized treatment plan. One of the main types of therapies is called task-oriented intervention. It involves working with your child to identify specific tasks that cause difficulties and finding ways to overcome them. Literally, Heather. Literally, Heather. Literally, Heather. Right? Literally, like learning to live with it, right? You find ways to overcome it. And the thing is, like I said, if that's the case, then they can't say that it's a physical disability that made it impossible for him to do X, Y, Z, right? Swimming is very good for it. We love Blackwater. I have no idea what you're referencing, Kat, because I haven't been looking at the chat because I've been reading. But yeah, you can put anything in the Discord. Angel saying, I'm sick of saying, did I say that? If I said that, I'm sorry. I don't know what it would have been in the context for, but she says, I'm so sick of hearing. I said it first, and I said this 2 years ago from some YouTubers. I don't think I said that. But if I did and I offended you, I'm sorry. It's not like usually something I would say. Usually I'm like, what did I just say a few minutes ago? Like literally even tonight, right? I'm like, what did I just say yesterday? But it's not like I said it. It's not like first or 2 years ago. I don't think I've ever said anything like that. Okay, not me. Okay. Yeah, it's just not really part of my whole thing. If are y'all talking about the Counting Crows song, Colorblind? It's a great song. Great song. You guys are so funny. You guys are so funny. Y'all, okay, got it. Got it. The viola did it. Oh my God, violas. Oh. You learn other ways to do things. Yeah. I think it depends on like, that's why it does help to read this, right? Because in other words, what I'm gleaning, like the fact that this is a part of it does give you an idea as to what this is, right? Because like there's obviously physical disabilities that are like, you know, a big deal, you know, and there's some that you can, you know, so it's just, yeah. Special grips to pens and pencils to make them easier to hold. I mean, you know, everybody has their preference for that type of thing. That's interesting though. Like, look, there's a co-occurrence here for like ASD, ADHD. What is that from? Is that from a movie? Or is that from a song? Why does that sound familiar? Oh, Top Gun. Yes. Boom, boom. Okay. Real quick little story. So one of my bands in college, we played, we did this really fun show every year on Halloween at this house where a bunch of music majors lived. And so for Halloween, we would do like funny, I don't know if you can call it funny. We did like covers, like really good covers. Like we did some awesome stuff. It kind of ran the gamut of like Radiohead and like Talking Heads and all kinds of stuff, right? But my favorite thing of all, I think this was my idea, was we did a medley. You guys know Always Sunny? Like like the show All Sunny and the Dayman, fighter of the night, man, So we did a medley of it started out with like no one would know what it is, right? And it's like so like the audience would know what it is, and then like it, and then basically slowly but surely it was like whatever the chords were, right? And then it turned into, and it was because the violin playing melody turned into the Top Gun theme. Bum 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 ba bum 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 bum, right? The Top Gun theme. And then we would go and we built that up really slowly. So people were like, whoa, right? And we would be so the Top Gun theme. But then I'll show you how we did. So it was like bum 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 bum. And then it would go right into so bum 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 bum, Dayman. But like anyway, the way we did it was amazing, and it was really fucking funny and fun. And yeah, those were the days. But yeah, so that Top Gun. So if you put a question in the Discord, I'm not gonna be able to handle that right now, but after I'm done streaming, I will take a look. Okay, so how do we take care of the children? So be an advocate for them. Yeah, it definitely does not seem like it's something that, you know, right. For example, different from cerebral palsy or muscular dystrophy. Those distinction, right? So they're saying they would rule those out. I was trying to think of an example of something that is like a big, much more of a physical disability. Like those are. Okay, so there we do. There we did it. We did it. There you go. So, all right. So then it makes sense, though. Dr. Orr clearly explains that motor problems have not impacted his functioning significantly in many years. So it's going to depend on what these experts, their full thing says. But like, if that's the case, this is not coming in. That, however, again, the buckets. What did he say? Separate from the autism, right? I've already talked about that. This is the other thing. This is a completely separate bucket, and this to me seemed like it was going to be probably the least likely anyway. So, to the extent that defendant currently has any motor impairment, even according to his own expert, it affects only his fine motor dexterity and vulnerabilities in visual motor functions. The examples, I was literally just going to say, what are the fine motor dexterities? The examples he uses for fine motor dexterity include when he had poor handwriting and trouble tying his shoes in the past. Says again, she asserts he continues to have difficulty with the manipulation of tools even as an adult, but only per parent report. Huh? So you didn't assess it? Uh-oh, that's not good. We need you to assess it because you're the expert. I'm talking to the expert. She also points out her observations during the examination. Defendant moved his whole arm and repositioned his upper body slightly to manipulate the items effectively. Interesting. So, okay, so he was examined. Okay, I have questions. So she examined him, but then how come? Okay. Let me just reiterate this. So she examined him, right? He was examined, but the part where the expert says he continues to have difficulty with manipulation of tools even as an adult is per parent report. What that means now we know that he was examined. She did not see this difficulty. So that's there. And then that he moved his whole arm and repositioned his upper body slightly to manipulate the items effectively. I wonder what they're having him do for these tests. No reasonable juror could infer from these observations a diagnosis that applied to defendant in the past was not possible. Right, for the defendant to commit the crimes when he's charged, of which he's charged. Most tellingly, neither of the defendant's experts drew that or any similar inference. Neither experts offer an opinion of whether any of his conditions make it more or less likely that he was physically capable of committing the crimes he's charged. Okay, so the experts don't say that. Thus, the expert opinions themselves are inadmissible during the guilt phase because they're not relevant to guilt. Interesting. Okay. And defendant's attempt to stretch his experts' opinions weight beyond what they say is barred by Rule 403 as unfairly prejudicial, misleading, and a waste of time. Finally, it now appears that the defendant wants to offer evidence that his OCD and ASD are actually physical conditions as opposed to mental conditions. As stated above, this is new, and the state is attempting to understand how this would be relevant or admissible. The state will note that having this knowledge before the state's motion in limine was not drafted to address it. So they're like, we didn't, okay. Yeah, new information. Based on the above, the state asks the court to enter orders in limine as follows. 1, prohibiting the defendant from offering evidence of purported explanations of how he may appear in front of a jury. This is irrelevant and immaterial and is most likely to appeal to sympathies of the jury, to mislead and to cause confusion on the real issues in the case, which are whether or not the defendant is guilty of murder and burglary. 2, reserving ruling, interesting, on whether the defendant is entitled to offer rebuttal evidence of his mental condition to the extent that it might offer an alternative explanation to any state's evidence about the defendant's suspicious, unusual, or otherwise odd physical. So that's interesting. They're saying reserve ruling on bucket 2. It's so funny because they've got 3 buckets. I had 3 buckets and they have 3 buckets. So they're on bucket 1, the one that I thought was the most important or likely. They're like, nah, but also there wasn't any case law to support it. So I get it. And then on bucket 2, that's the one that could potentially explain, like, again, things like gloves or hand washing or germs or whatever, sorting of trash. They're saying reserve ruling. They're not. This is interesting, right? They're not just asking for it to be flat out denied. And then number 3, as far as the DCD and the physical thing, they're saying deny the introduction of newly disclosed evidence regarding the physical condition, which was not previously disclosed, nor proffered as rebuttal or response. Yeah, I think that's, given what we just learned, I think that's fair. Given what we just learned, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Interesting. It goes a lot further for me when they're not just like flat out deny it all, right? That's why I'm surprised. There's been some moments in these recent state filings from the state where they were reasonable. Like there was that one, conditions as aggravator, right? And they're like, grant the defendant's motion. I was like, whoa, all right. And then here, reserve ruling. I mean, that's big. It's not asking them to deny it, which is crazy, right? So, then that's it. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So next up, what is this? Huh. Interesting. Look at this one, guys. So this is notice of appearance. So this is the state's motion. Gives notice to the court and opposing counsel that Deputy Attorney General Madison Allen. Okay, let me just say that again. Deputy Attorney General Madison Allen will appear as an attorney for the state in this matter. Ms. Allen will appear for the limited purpose of assisting Latah County prosecuting attorney with jury selection, scheduled to commence on July 30th. God, that's just getting right around the corner. Ms. Allen's assistance with jury selection will include responding to the defendant's motion to adopt voir dire procedure and objection to magic question. So if you guys heard me go, that's interesting, it's because I read this and I was like, what's the magic question? I don't know. The response has been filed contemporaneously with this notice. And is that it? Is that all? That's what she said? I want to know what the magic question is. What do you guys think the magic question is? What is the magic question? Do you consent? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm making a joke, bringing it back to like the members only from earlier and whatnot. Oh, good. Black Witter is following up on her tree planting. That's good. How's your move been going, Black Witter? Are you guys still in the process? See, I'm seeing magic question in quotes. My mind is going elsewhere, not related to voir dire or trial or anything. So I'm thinking magic question of like, I don't know. Anyway, never mind. Heather's like trying to be on topic, and that's not where I'm like imagining like what if like is there a magic question, like if somebody's like trying to get laid or something, right? Like that's the way I saw this, that's where my brain went, just because of I don't know why. Magic question, like I don't know. Speaking of which, you guys who were here for one of the recent Karen Reed live streams, we were shout out to DSN because he started doing it first, coming up with alternate jury questions for the jury questionnaire, and it was fucking hilarious. I will just say I've been compiling. Should I just show you guys a preview? I've been compiling it. Okay, hold on. I've been compiling it, and miraculously, I've been able to do it and make it look just like the real one. It's pretty crazy. I'll show you guys. I'm not done yet. I'll show you guys what I have so far, though. All right. Hang on. So, okay. So let me just show you guys. This is the actual first page of the actual one, right? So take a look at the font. Take a look at the formatting. There you go. Okay, now unshare, reshare. I'm not done. I'm gonna fix some of this stuff, but I've got a couple. I just want to show you guys what I got so far. First question: are you a McAlbert? Second question: have you ever answered a butt dial? Third question: do you generally drive through a military base to destroy your old phone when you are upgrade eligible? Number 4: have you ever eaten a PB&J in the back seat while being brought home by a drunk driver? Number 5: are a piece missing and smashed to bits logically equivalent to you? Number 6: when gathering evidence, should party favors and lawn equipment ever be used? Number 7: would you like to sit at the bar or a high top? Number 8: do you have a problem with people wearing shoes in the house? Meg P, that was your idea. Number 9: when publishing a Lolliport video, is it always correct to flip it and reverse it? And that's the one where I left off. But basically, these are Squirrel Crew jury. And so I'm going to make it look just like the real thing. Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys because we were talking about the jury questionnaire for here. So, oh, excellent. Thank you for following up. So on Friday. Okay. So soon. Okay. How do you feel about it? Are you excited or is it bittersweet? Because I know sometimes moving can be hard, even if you're going somewhere better. Who's doing okay? Yeah, shoes in the house. Yeah. Oh, okay. I've heard that name from somebody in the chat here, I guess. Yeah. So, okay, let me go back to, all right. Reshare. And by the way, for anyone who missed it, there's going to be another Donna Adelson hearing tomorrow. I've already got some new Karen Reed docs, so we will be doing that as well tomorrow. Okay, so next up, let's take a look. Ooh. Should we get into the 911 call? I don't know if we might want to save that for next time. Let me see what this is. What we would be getting ourselves into. No, we might want to be. So they did a similar thing here. They didn't color code it. Now that's going to be a different live stream. That'll be a different live stream. Hold on. Let me find something else that we can do real quick. The 404B evidence, because this is the traffic stop one with the video we were talking about, right? All right. Reply to state's response to defendant's motion to eliminate number 8. Wait. No, we did. We skipped one. I haven't done the state's response yet. Hold on. Or no, I guess I did it. Okay. All right. So this is a defense motion here, right? Yes. Reply to the state's response. Okay. This is boring. The state has informed the court that intends to comply. Hang on. Okay. So James is back. Woo! Oh my God, there's so many filings in my brain. Dude, hang on though. It's the inflammatory. That's what I'm looking for. Hang on. That's what I'm looking for. I think. I want the one. Okay, somebody help me out because I'm looking at my brain is too many documents. The one with the video. They pull them over the video. The traffic stop. That's the 404B, right? I mean, we just covered this, but it's just there's so many fucking filings. Right now they're all blurring together. Yeah, it is. It's the 404B. Interesting. So they're different. That's why they're different. So there's different ones. So there's the intent. Okay. So there's the notice of intent to use, but then there's also undisclosed. So there's not been a follow-up filing on, I'll double check, but I don't think there's been a follow-up to this one. This is the one with the traffic stop. So it would be a defense filing. Let me just double check. Yeah, I don't see it yet. So, interesting. So there's the unnoticed 404B evidence, which this is what we're looking at. Here. Which is just like we're gonna. That's it. That's all it is. But then there's also the intent to use 404B. That's the traffic stop where we're like, what is it, right? Thank you guys for the super chats and super stickers, everybody. You're very welcome. Interesting. Are you in New Zealand? If you're in New Zealand, I'm so jealous. It's on my bucket list. I've always wanted to go to New Zealand. And James is back. Thank you again for the super chat. Never had tofu. That's so funny. I have, of course. Bye, Rolo. Oh my God, I'm so jealous. That's awesome. Yeah, where is Twiz? Twiz! That's a good question. Are you guys having troubles with screens or something? Mine looks normal on my end. Yeah, I don't doubt that raw tofu, but I've never had it. I mean, I don't know that people really. Okay, so we've got next one up. So now we have reply to the state's response to the defense motion in limine number 3. So use of the term murder. By the way, yeah, YouTube's had some issues earlier today, and so anyway, it could be YouTube thing for you, Blockwitter. Okay, so use of the term murder. Again, another short one. So the motion is to exclude the state in its case presentation from using any form of the word murder as it applies to him. His request is based on his constitutional rights. Mr. Kohberger in his motion specifically stated it was not the use of the word murder, but phrasing of the word that labeled him. Mr. Kohberger has maintained his innocence since the day he was accused. His objection is about referring to him as a murderer. To allow the state to present its case by labeling him as a murderer is improper and inflammatory. That will be the ultimate jury question, and the jury must not be prejudiced by making a decision based on influence, labels, and inference of what state applies. So here's my take on that. In other words, it's making a distinction. It's like they could talk about, somebody committed murder or whatever, but just to say a murderer is different. It's sort of like how some people don't want to be defined by their job. For me, it's the opposite. Like, I am a violinist. Like, I play violin sounds weird. I am a violinist, right? So like, it's like that, right? Where it's like, they don't want him to be labeled a murderer, which is fair because legally speaking, that's the point, right? That's the point. He's innocent until proven guilty. So to call him a murderer is, I don't think this is going to go anywhere, but I think it should. And I think this is true for every trial. I don't think they should ever call anybody a murderer when they're still in the guilt phase of trial. So, yep, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely for that as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a question for the jury. That's the whole point, right? Once it's passed, if somebody's convicted and then it goes on, if it's a death penalty trial, and then it goes on to, a sentencing phase, then that's different. For me though, personally, I think it's dumb. I think it's stupid and I do think it's inflammatory. Like, even if somebody's convicted, I would be like, if it were me, my preference would be like convicted of, and then you fill in the blank with the crimes, right? I don't think you need to label the person as the crime. And I think that's true with most things. Again, with violin, it's just weird because like that's just very different. Violin is like, anyway, it's like who I am. It's like I am violent. But with most things, though, I think it's actually really important to separate things out and not apply it to somebody's identity. So I just generally think like that. Like, for example, like, I don't know. I guess you could also think of it sort of like negative self-talk, like in assessing things, right? So like I always teach my students, like, instead of being like, oh, I'm terrible at that, or I did think that X, Y, and Z badly, or whatever, where they're like labeling themselves, right? I teach them to, and it's something that is like really good to do anyway, but I teach them to focus on what it is that they heard they didn't like. So for example, oh, that note was out of tune, and so like, then what do you do to make it sound better? Oh, well, I moved my finger up, or whatever the case may be, right? But there's a thing where it's like people instead start labeling or judging themselves. And so anyway, all that to say that just for me as a personal thing, I operate very much not that way of like, it wouldn't occur to me to call someone a murderer. It just wouldn't occur to me. Like, you know what I mean? Anyway, but that's just me. So, absolutely positive affirmations, positive. Absolutely. Yep. Why would I stop playing the violin? Never. I also love that. Yeah, I love that as well. Yep. I really wanted to adopt that, but the thing is a lot of people won't know what you're talking about. But I also loved that, the innocent phase, and then the what does she call it? Mitigation phase versus the guilt phase, and then the sentencing or guilt and penalty. But yeah. Oh, you're saying you would quit if you were out of tune. Well, it's no. I mean, you assume you're out of tune. I mean, really, you assume you're out of tune because like everybody's at it. You know, that's one of the things. That's one of the reasons why violin is difficult, right? I mean, it's always out of tune. I mean, you can't. You know, it's just part of life. It's just part of life. So anyways, guys, I think I'm going to go ahead and end it here, and we will carry on next time. So maybe we'll be able to do some more of these BK docs tomorrow, but at the very least, we'll definitely have, I would imagine Karen Reed, probably Donna Edelson, maybe some more BK docs, but we got through a lot of them tonight. And it helped too that like some of them were shorter. And also we did have a little tangent there. We learned about the, this thing, the DCD/dyspraxia. We had that. We did a good recapping on the previous filings. For anyone who got here later, I will just say, and also for anyone who's new, welcome. Love it. Squirrel crew. We love to have you guys. But will just say as well, I do very detailed timestamps. So for anyone who's on replay crew, you can always look for that. And I have playlists on my channel for all the different cases that I'm covering and have covered. And we do have memberships now, as many of you guys already have seen. And we also have the Discord. We should put that in the chat as well. So yeah. Let me see what you guys are saying. I know y'all are talking about some other languages. Are you saying to me, have chat on screen? I don't know what you mean. Is that to me? You're very welcome, Kat Randall. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. We appreciate you. So yeah, but and we will also, again, like I said, have another members only live soon. Get your trivia categories in, guys. What y'all look, you guys. I see what you're saying. I always do chat replay. I always have chat replay turned on. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I always do live chat replay. Yep. Sometimes it takes a minute for it to load when you just go up when you finish a live, but I always have live chat replay. I was going to say this though. You guys who are always apologizing for things, I don't know you guys need to stop apologizing for things. Because it breaks my heart that some of you guys always think you're doing things and like, what is the word? It's like, I don't know. It's like, I see this a lot from different people. What I mean is like, you guys are so, always concerned that you're doing something wrong. Maybe. I know Flash, shout out to Flash. we've talked about it a lot because it's something that he's discussed, where he's like automatically blaming himself for stuff or doing. Anyway, I was just going to say, nobody needs to be apologizing for anything. Nobody's done anything wrong. And I just want you guys to feel better about yourself. Like, I just don't want you guys to feel like you need to always be down on yourselves. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Oh my God, I'm so jealous. I love pho. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any rules. I'm just like, everyone be nice. I mean, it's not even a rule. I don't have any rules. I've never had to make rules. Everyone has always been amazing. So, yeah, I understand that. But props to you, Meg, because I feel like I haven't seen it that much from you recently. So that's awesome. I mean, you know, that's funny, Meg. Yeah, and I totally understand. Yeah, I don't know. It's so funny. I know there's things that going on. I'm so out of the loop. I don't really know. But I don't think you guys need to be worried though for saying things. Shrinking violets. Love that. Way to bring up the shrinking violets. Are we shrinking violets? Dude. Well said, Kat Randall. Well said. Well said. So yes, I always have the live chat replay on. Yes, for sure. But other than that, thanks guys for being here. And I'll see you guys next time. Squirrel out.